Hello, kiddies. You're just in time for your driving lesson. Today, we'll be learning about parallel parking and the right way to look behind when hacking up. But first, I thought we'd go over a few common hand signals. This, of course, means you're turning right. And this means you're turning left. And this means... slow down. It's time to watch Tales from the Crypt. Tonight's moving violation concerns a disc jockey who's so cutting edge, he may lose his chap. I call it In the Groove.
Oh, baby, you are so hot. You're on fire, you're steam. I'm gonna take your shoe off. Is that okay? Can I do that?
Okay.
Only two kinds of girls wear red shoes, and you ain't no Spanish dancer. You don't know what you're doing to me. And now I think the stocking. Yeah. Baby, you've got the most beautiful legs, but I bet you hear that all the time, don't you?
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, right. Why don't you stand up? I want you out of that skirt, you nasty little girl. God, you look so good in that G-string.
I don't wear G-strings.
Okay. What kind of panties do you wear?
You know, regular ones.
Fine, whatever.
I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Fine. Maybe one of our listeners has a fantasy that's more to your liking. So, okay out there, Lancaster. The lovely Carla's waiting to hear from you. Let's go to the phones. Number here is 555-1234. What? What? Did somebody drop a bomb on you people? Hello, Lancaster? Are you out there? Come in. Or maybe you bumpkins just haven't figured out how to use a telephone yet. Screw all of you. This has been another fun-filled excursion on Gary's Drive Time Desires, the show that gets you up in the morning. All right, I'm out of here. Enough fun for today. Hank Bodine is up next. Hey, there's a good time. Thanks for nothing, sweetheart. That was even more boring than sex with my ex. Come on, let's go.
Does this mean it's over?
That's over. Just get the hell out of here and don't listen to my radio show anymore.
I never listen to your radio show. Where's my $10, buddy?
What are you talking about? Get out of here before I call security.
Oh, hey, listen, you're the one that asked me to be
What?
here.
Get out of here, you big old
yeah, you
nasty
are such
orange
a geek.
woman.
You're a
Halloween
geek.
special.
You know what? I'm gonna get my $10.
Don't come back. Jesus, do you believe that chick?
Security. Like you need it.
Up yours, pal. What'd you get last quarter?
30 share. What'd you get, mama's boy?
Not a 30 share. Oh, not even a .30 share.
I want him fired.
Oh, you're the one I wish I could fire.
What's going on?
I just got off the phone with the only sponsor you had left.
Hendrix Auto Body walked.
Hendrix Auto Body ran. I'm moving Hank to drive time, shifting you to graveyard.
What? You can't shift me to graveyard.
Hey, listen, every second you're on the air, this station loses money. And if your ratings don't improve in your first week, I am cutting you down to half an hour.
You don't have the authority to do that.
It's all in the will.
No. Mom left us the station 50-50. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Read the fine print. I make the corporate decisions, not you. You think Mom was stupid? God.
God, if that woman were alive, I'd kill her!
Show some respect. By the way, You won't be alone in your new time slot. I've decided to partner you with someone.
What?
She's a fan of yours, if you can believe that. Been bugging me for months.
I don't want a partner.
It's not a question of want. Gary, this is Valerie Cordoza. Valerie, meet Gary Grover.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I have been a fan of yours since your Pittsburgh days. I went to college there.
I'm warning you, don't do this.
Gary, your material sucks. I think you should listen to some of Miss Cordoza's ideas.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I could help, Gary. I think what you're doing is great. The problem is the audience hasn't figured you out yet. All you need is more time and maybe a little help with some... Just give me a try. If it doesn't work, I'll walk away.
Walk away now.
I'm not your enemy, Gary. I'm not your sister.
So, for that really big, huge, monstrous-sized headache, use new noggin relief. You won't feel a thing. Really.
This is KWMG Lancaster.
Welcome to Grover's Graveyard, the show that gets you up from 6 feet under.
Oh, baby. You are so hot. I'm gonna take your shoe off now. Is that okay? Can I do that? Yeah. Now I think the stocking. Yes, baby, you have the most beautiful legs I've ever seen, but I bet you hear that a lot, don't you?
Gary,
Yeah?
you don't have to take my other stocking off because it's already off.
What are you?
In fact, all I have on is this white silk see-through dress. Can't you see the shape of my body through it? I don't like underwear, Gary. I find it too constricting. I like to feel the nice, soft breeze hum all over every part of me. Let me take my dress off so you can look at me. Do you like what you see?
Yeah.
Let me feel what I do to you, Gary.
Oh my. Did I do that?
What are you?
Oh, Gary, you animal. In the studio.
I've never even done it like this before. Oh, Gary. I just can't resist you. Oh, take me, Gary. Fast.
I'll take your calls right after this message.
Yes, I can take it. Give me everything you've got.
How was that?
Honey, I'm back. Yes! Did you? You know?
No. Did you?
No. That's right, Lancaster. It's Bizarre Sex Act Thursday. I don't know about you, but things here in the studio are getting a little fluffy, if you know what I'm saying. Now, I want to hear the weirdest, the strangest, the most unquestionably perverse things that you've ever done. And I want to hear it now. I want it hot. I want it nasty. Deal with it. Deal with it. Oh, and Mom, if you're listening, I don't want to know about it. Let's go to the phone, shall we? You're on the air. Shock me.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, baby. What do you got for me? What's the most bizarre act you've ever done?
I'm doing it right now while I'm listening to you. Oh, it's so
Oh,
good.
you're kidding. Well, I guess that would make you a nasty little monkey woman, wouldn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah, it sure would. What do you think I ought to do about that?
I don't know. I could come down to your studio and you could spank me if you want.
Is that right?
I live right nearby. I could be there in just a few
Mom,
minutes.
I told you never to call me here.
I'm Gary Grover, and we will continue. I'll be right back.
He says,
Sounds familiar?
guess you won't be cutting my time after all, huh?
It's only been a week. Don't flatter yourself.
Well, I want you to have a wonderful night in that nice little house of yours, all by yourself. Hey, why don't you listen to the show? It's the most exciting thing that'll ever creep into your bedroom.
Capture your eye. For 27 years.
Damn! Somebody please hose me off.
Giving them food and shelter until
You're feeling it too, aren't you? The chemistry, the heat.
For any adoption.
Listen, this isn't really the...
Whatever you can afford. So
God, I love having you in my head.
God, I love being there.
dog or little pussycat is staring you straight in the face. You just won't be able to say no.
Hi, neighbors. Dr. Hiller the Driller here from the Lancaster Dental Office. When's the last time you opened your mouth up nice and wide and had somebody give you their professional opinion? At the dental office, the inside of your mouth is very important to us. We take pride.
As far as I'm concerned...
So Larry from Lancaster, let me get this straight. You tell me you have a problem with the fact that you came home and caught your wife in bed with another woman. Is that what you told me? Is that what you said to me, Larry?
I got a big problem with that. I figured if she's gonna have an affair, why couldn't it be normal? You know, like with another man.
Pal.
What?
You catch colon cancer. That's a problem.
Well, yeah, but...
Your dog dies. It's your best friend. That's a problem.
Yeah?
You catch your wife in bed with another woman. Not a problem.
Well, we just...
You know how many losers from Lancaster would die to be in your shoes, Larry? Do you?
Oh, heck, my friends, they
You out of your mind? Why didn't you jump in? Grab the moment. Jump in there. You know what? You don't even deserve to jump in. Here's what you do. Send him down to me. That's right, baby. Send him to me. Me and Val will tighten him up. We know what to do with nasty little girls like that, don't we, Val?
now, come on. You tried
You're a loser, Larry. You always were a loser. Get off my radio station. So, Insomniacs, it ends another evening of the sexiest show you will ever see on the radio. Those of you just going off to work, suffer. That was great. What's the matter?
That was definitely cool.
Thanks a lot.
I was talking to the chick.
Don't get too comfy in that drive time slot, buddy. Val! Val, will you wait a minute? What's the matter? What did you run out of there?
It's the show.
What is wrong with the show? The show's great. Next rating book that comes out, we're going to be ready to expand the entire station group. What's the problem?
Not if we keep doing what we're doing.
What are you talking about?
All we ever talk about is sex.
Yeah, so? What's the problem with that? That's what our audience wants to hear.
No, that's all we give them. We're better than that.
No. You see, they want to forget about their pathetic, impotent lives. It's called escapism, entertainment. What's the matter?
Do you trust me?
Why don't you take me home and find out? Oh, Jesus. Val! Am I gonna see you later?
Haven't gotten any action lately.
Okay, so we'll start off with the Unfaithfully Yours sketch. I ought to get some juicy confessions on that one. About 2:30, I think we'll go to Fantastic Fetishes. Okay. Let's say we did talk about something else. What, for instance, might that be?
You have a lot of strong opinions, Gary. Why don't you say what you feel for a change?
About what? Hey, Lancaster, it's Gary Grover. How y'all doing? Tonight, I thought that, I have something for you that's gonna be a little different. I don't know about you, but I've got a headache, so I thought that we might talk about... Come on. Anger. Let's talk about anger for a minute. Anger's a good thing. Not that it's, you know, good to be angry at someone, but it's... But sometimes there are things in our lives that we are legitimately angry about, and if you don't let that anger out, you... Let's talk about authority figures, shall we? I just can't stand anyone in this world who has authority over me and abuses it. You give some loser, a uniform or a suit, and all of a sudden they think they are God, making our lives miserable. Why? Because they can. Have I ever told you people about my mother? My mother owned a lot of radio stations in her day. Not that I was ever employed in any of them, because she didn't want to spoil us. And when she died, what do you think this loving, nurturing woman left me in her will? Chicago station? No. Her Minneapolis station? No. All she left me was half of her Lancaster station. Half. And do you know why she did this? Because after holding me back my entire life, she wanted to keep me under her thumb from beyond the grave as well. Have you ever heard anything more sick? Anything more perverse? Despite all her success, my mother was just a greedy, hateful, wretched, all shriveled up bitch! I hope you're in hell, Mother, because that's what you made my life. I'll be back right after these words.
Are you so?
Do you realize what you just did?
Hopeless.
That was unbelievable. That was better than sex.
I am hereby giving you notice. Tomorrow is your last show.
Randomly kill everybody.
You can't do that, remember? Christ, will you look at those phone lines?
Oh, Mother's will was very, very specific. No one is to defame her on the air, ever.
I'm the hottest thing you got, baby. You couldn't get rid of me even if you wanted to.
Oh, you're finished.
All right, you want to get rid of me? Fine. I don't need this place. I can get a job at another station like that.
Oh, I'm not firing you. I'm just taking you off the air and holding onto your contract.
And never came to see us at the clinic.
No one else is going to be able to touch you
If you're
for
considering
years.
killing anybody, even if it's just a member of your own family or yourself.
You can't do that to me! I won't let you do that to me!
I'm sorry, this whole thing is
Not
my
your fault. Listen, she lives for vengeance. Do you know what I mean? Ever since we were kids, I mean, she would take the prize of the box of cereal or eat all the little tasty treats.
But if
Listen to me. What happened last night was great radio. You heard the callers. We are on to something, and I'm not gonna let my sister stop us.
She's got us. What are we gonna do? Kill her? That was a rhetorical question.
Give me your hands. I'm gonna put something in your head for a change. We won't get caught. We'll kill her while we're on the air.
What?
She's doing this to both of us, fellas. Just hear me out. We'll pre-tape a segment, say 20 minutes worth, and around 1:30 we'll start rolling it. You'll drive me to Rita's house. I know her house. I'll go in a window and make it look like a burglary. I'll go to her bedroom. And while she's asleep, I'll kill that little rat bitch. What do you say, partner? For us.
Let's do it.
Because planning so many meals a week and trying to keep my family satisfied can be hard work.
Mrs. Anderson discovered the newly opened Kitchen Cove in downtown Lancaster.
It's great because they have all sorts of things on the menu and everybody can find things that they like. Oh, even my son, he's a tough one. He usually doesn't like anything.
The Kitchen Cove at 609 Main Street.
It's 128 Lancaster, and we are back in Grover's graveyard. I thought tonight we might stroll down a different path than last night, just lighten it up a bit. What do you say? Let's talk about the crazy things we have done for love.
Hey, Hey, be careful.
Thanks for helping me break in my new on-air talent.
Rita.
I wasn't too sure about this self-defense thing, but Val's plan has worked perfectly right from the beginning.
Please.
Hey, if it's any consolation, I think you finally found an audience. You might have been pretty good after all.
Don't do this. I'm your brother, for God's sake.
An accident of birth. Give my love to Mom.
See, the problem was, I was nuts about her. And I was totally blinded from seeing what a fool I was. I'll tell you, it's amazing sometimes what you'll do to close a deal.
Folks, this is Valerie. And something awful has happened. I just popped out for a sandwich. And when I got back, Gary wasn't here. But he left this tape playing. I've just been notified by the police that Gary is dead. He's been killed. It's just... I know that this is hard for me. And I'm sure it's hard for all of us. But at least we have each other. And the phone lines are open. Hi, this is Val.
My gosh, Val, this is such a terrible thing. I mean, all I can say is I'm just so glad we have you to talk to tonight. And I feel I can speak on behalf of everyone here. People are going to be talking, let me tell you. We all love the show so much, and we stay asleep.
Poor Gary. Talk about being number one with a bullet. Looks like he'll be the morning man after all. As for me, kiddies, I guess I better start practicing what I preach. I got caught going a little faster than the speed limit, but the officer decided to let me off with a warning. See? It pays to know the ghouls of the road. Greetings, thrill shriekers. Care to join me on the scare lift? Good. Your pal the Crypt Keeper's quite the extreme skier. I just love the feeling of going fester and fester. Talk about exhilarating. Which is kind of how the man in tonight's Tattletale feels. He's just started down a black diamond run of his own in a nasty nugget I call Surprise Party.
Hope you find it comfortable. Don't get too many folks up here. Glad to have you. The rain never stops, sun comes out. Ain't no prettier viewing this than right here.
Beautiful. I had no idea it was so rural out here.
Clean and safe. Good night, Mr. Wells. Say, you wouldn't happen to be related to the Wells that owns a farm outside of town, would you?
Yeah, I'm his son. Actually, I just inherited the place. That's why I'm here. I'm gonna see it tomorrow.
Oh. So you're the son of Desmond?
Yeah. Is there something wrong?
Not for me. So you're going out there, huh? Well, if that's what you want to do, some folks out there gonna be surprised to see you. Yes, sir.
The place burned
Yes,
down
sir.
20 years ago. How could there be anyone in it?
Uh-huh. Well, I wouldn't care to find out. I just let things be. Just let them be. Ain't been anywhere near there for years, not since your father left after the fire.
Well, then how do you know there's anyone there?
Lights. Sometimes sounds. Could be imagination, but I ain't curious enough to find out. No, sir. No,
Lights
sir.
on my property? What are you talking about, lady?
God be with you. Good luck, whichever one you believe in. This.
Lights on my property? Jeez.
Mr. Wells. Mr. Wells. Mr. Wells. Mr. Wells, your son is here.
Well, I never thought I'd hear that.
Tell me I don't have much time left, so I wanted to see you.
You wanted to see me. Sure you did, you dried up son of a bitch. You had to squeeze out that last drop of feeling out of me before you died, didn't you?
Ray, please don't talk to me like that. I drew up a will. Did it myself a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to explain it to you.
There was no damn explanation.
The will's on the table. Get it.
You're giving the property to charity. Charity? Ha!
Ray, I'm doing it for your own good.
What a guy. Wait. This isn't even official.
Notary's coming tomorrow.
That's fine. I'll destroy it today.
Go ahead, I'll just make another one. Listen to me, damn it. That's the way the will stays. The fire destroyed everything. There's nothing left there but my memories. Ray. It's cursed grounds. You have to believe me. If there's only one thing I would do for you, it would be to see that you never set foot there.
That property is mine, goddammit. You never wrote this will. It doesn't exist. And as your only surviving heir, everything you've got goes to me.
What are you doing?
You can't deny me what's mine. Damn you! The property is mine.
Cursed ground. Never set foot there.
What? Excuse me. Excuse me. Hey! Hello? Look, people, I don't know what you're doing here, but I want you out. Now! Do you hear me? Hey, sweet cheeks.
Hey, man, you get your hands off of me.
Are you stoned or what?
Maybe a little partied out.
Well, that's good, good. Because I want you out of here in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Look, people, maybe I didn't make myself clear. You are trespassers. If you're not off this property in 5 minutes, I'm calling the cops. I own this place. My name is Ray Wells.
Right on!
when they were here?
Man, are you kidding?
No, you can ask the cops when they get here, darling, if I was kidding.
Oh, man, it's such a nasty night out, and police department's only got 2 guys. I don't know if they're gonna want to come all the way out here just to interrupt an innocent little party.
Party? Well, trust me, darling, this ain't a party.
Woo! Damn, where'd this hunka burning love come from? Hey, Mr. Wells, if you insist on tromping through the mud to turn us all in, then I insist that you fortify yourself first. Go on. It's not gonna bite you. I'm the thing that's gonna do that. Easy, Slugger. That stuff's pretty rough.
Oh. What is this?
Fruit juice, some tang, a little sherbet. And lots of grain alcohol. I call it midnight special. Because if you drink it till midnight, things get pretty damn special.
With this crowd?
You'd be surprised.
I'd be shocked.
Here you go. You feeling special yet?
I'll let you know, Josie. It is Josie, isn't it?
That's my name.
I can see that. Tell me something. What are all these people doing in my house?
We're waiting for you, Angel. We were so hoping you'd come by and check out your property. Now that you're here, think of this as your housewarming.
Well, that's very nice of y'all.
You mind if I unbutton your shirt?
Nope. Be my guest.
Ooh. Midnight, here we come.
Josie, you want to dance?
I'm having a conversation, Frank, or didn't you notice?
Yeah, I noticed.
I'll dance with you in a couple of minutes, okay?
You know, I had a feeling this would happen with you. The second he comes waltzing in this door, you're all over him like white on rice.
Frank!
Sorry. Forgot. I'm just the caretaker here. Who do I think I am, right?
Come on. Hold the lamp, would you?
So, that guy, he takes care of the house.
Yeah, does a great job, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's always so jealous. God, I hate that. Do me a favor, put the can back on the shelf.
Sure.
Fancy meeting you here. I can't tell you how much I've waited for this.
Is that right?
I know, it sounds strange, but I always knew that someday you would inherit this house. I was just praying that you weren't going to be some pathetic little creature.
And now you,
Let's go.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm not ready yet.
You're not ready.
Now I'm ready. I'm gonna tear you to pieces.
Son of a bitch. You think you can just walk into my house and take anything you want? Well, screw you, pal. I see you looking at my woman again, I will kill you.
Oh! God, you got it wrong, pal! This is my house! And as for your woman there, bright boy, she was begging for it!
Frank, stop it!
Oh, baby, I want to kill this girl.
Frank, look out!
It's okay, you can't me in my own house! It was self-defense! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! God damn it! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Oh, Jesus. God.
You should have stopped screaming! Damn it!
I don't think so, Ray.
You know, Ray, it's one thing to be a jerk-off. But you could at least be original about it.
What?
Look, Frank. He's even got the same lighter his father used.
Oh, what, Ray? Daddy never told you about his wild parties?
He never told you about the one he threw in '73? That was a real barn burner.
God, no, no. Yeah, everything was going great. Till he got drunk and decided he had dibs on my little girl here. And then when I walked in on him...
He knows the rest, don't you, Ray?
Roasting 15 people alive? Pretty rotten way to cover his ass, don't you think, Ray? Would you like to see? So, you can see why we've been so anxious to meet you.
We've been partying a long time waiting for you to show up, Fuego boy. We are very tired.
Maybe now we can get some rest.
Poor Ray. Well, at least he went out in a blaze of glory. Still, talk about a pain in the ash.
Hi, CRYPT.
As for me, kiddies, I'm about skied out. Not that I didn't have fun, but these boots are killing me. Ow. Ooh. Oh, my. Now that's what I call the agony of defeat.
The neon lights of the city flickered like restless fireflies as Jerry Donovan stepped off the subway platform, his fingers still drumming an absent-minded rhythm against the leather strap of his worn briefcase. The evening air was sharp with the scent of rain yet to come, and a low hum of distant traffic vibrated through the cracked concrete beneath his feet. Jerry had that peculiar mixture of exhaustion and nervous anticipation that only a man on the verge of either disaster or triumph could feel. He adjusted his tie, a shade too tight around his neck, and thought about the meeting he had just come from, a job interview that felt more like an audition, more like a test of endurance. Not that he expected to get it. He was the kind of man who never really got what he wanted, yet somehow, by some invisible, mocking thread, always seemed to end up where he did not belong. He ducked into a narrow alley to avoid a group of drunken teenagers, their laughter carrying across the damp bricks like glass shattering in slow motion. Jerry's mind drifted to his apartment, a cramped, dimly lit space on the fourth floor of a building that smelled permanently of mildew and fried onions. He pictured his neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy, with her relentless cat staring at him with thin-lipped suspicion every time he stepped into the hall. It was, by all accounts, a life that had long since stopped surprising him, but tonight, there was a peculiar, almost magnetic pull in his chest, an unnameable sensation that something was about to change. Jerry turned a corner and almost walked straight into a small, inconspicuous record store tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat. The window was fogged from the inside, streaks of condensation blurring the titles of the vinyls stacked haphazardly along the shelves. A single sign, hand-painted in curling red letters, read, "Groove Sanctuary. Discover yourself in sound." He paused, caught by the curious combination of invitation and vague threat. Music had always been his refuge, a world apart from the gray monotony of his 9-to-5, and yet he hadn't had the courage to indulge in it in years. Maybe it was the way the neon flickered against the rain-slicked pavement, or maybe it was the way his pulse quickened without explanation, but something told him he should step inside. The bell above the door jingled, sharp and bright, as he entered. The store smelled of varnish and old paper, of vinyl dust and faint incense. Shelves of records formed a labyrinth, aisles lined with artists he had never heard of, their album covers screaming colors he had long forgotten existed. At the counter stood a man with a slicked-back pompadour and a vest that looked borrowed from another era. His smile was too wide, teeth almost unnaturally white, eyes glinting like polished obsidian. "Looking for something special?" the man asked, his voice a smooth, unsettling melody that made Jerry's spine stiffen. Jerry cleared his throat. "Just browsing," he said, though he already knew he would not leave empty-handed. There was something about the store, something in the air that seemed to hum with a rhythm just beneath perception, pulling at him like a low-frequency note vibrating inside his chest. He wandered through the aisles, fingertips brushing over album covers, absorbing the faint static of sound waves stored in wax. And then he saw it. A record unlike any he had ever encountered. The cover was black as obsidian, but the grooves seemed to shimmer in a way that defied reflection, as if the music within it moved even when still. The title was embossed in silver letters, "In the Groove." He picked it up and felt a subtle shock run through his fingers, a warmth that seemed almost alive. The shopkeeper appeared at his side, not moving but somehow always there, his presence a shadow on the edge of perception. "Ah," he said softly, as if approving of the choice. "You have an ear for the extraordinary." Jerry laughed nervously. "Extraordinary is probably the last thing I deserve." The man's smile deepened, slow and knowing. Extraordinary chooses the deserving, Jerry. And sometimes it chooses the undeserving, but the music never lies. Jerry's pulse quickened. He didn't know the man's name, yet the familiarity in his voice clawed at some buried memory, some half-forgotten dream. He brought the record to the counter, the slick surface of the vinyl catching the dim light and scattering it like shards of crystal. "How much?" he asked. "Consider it an investment in yourself," the man said, and for a moment Jerry thought he saw a flicker of amusement, or was it hunger, in those dark eyes. Jerry paid without question, the coins and bills seeming to disappear instantly into the man's hand, leaving no sound but the lingering hum of electricity in the air. At home, Jerry set the record on the turntable with the reverence usually reserved for sacred objects. The needle touched the vinyl, and a single note rang out, clear, pure, vibrating through the room in a way that made the walls themselves seem to breathe. Then another and another, each one layering on the last, building a rhythm so compelling that Jerry could not resist moving to it. It was as if the music was alive, crawling under his skin, sinking into his bones, a seductive pulse that promised everything he had ever dreamed of and everything he feared. Hours passed, or was it minutes? Time had folded in on itself, and Jerry found himself caught in the groove, body moving as if of its own volition. The room around him became secondary. The furniture, the walls, the faint glow of his bedside lamp, all irrelevant in the face of the music. He closed his eyes, surrendered completely, and when he opened them again, he was aware of something different in the air, a subtle shift, a tingling at the edges of perception, like the world had tilted slightly on its axis. A shadow moved across the corner of the room, subtle but unmistakable. Jerry froze, heart hammering. "Who's there?" he called, though the sound felt fragile, swallowed by the rhythm still coursing through him. The shadow solidified into the shopkeeper, who now stood at the threshold of his apartment, eyes glinting, smile impossibly wide. "You've embraced the groove, Jerry," the man said, voice smooth, silky, yet threading through Jerry's nerves like fine steel wire. "You feel it now, don't you? The rhythm that binds everything, the pulse that controls everything." Jerry shook his head, trying to anchor himself. I don't understand. You can't just—" His words faltered as the music swelled, each note weaving around the room, around him, into him, pulling at something primal, something dangerous. The shopkeeper stepped closer, and with each step the shadows seemed to stretch and bend unnaturally. "Understand this, Jerry," he said. "Music is power. It is influence. And this record, it's not just sound, it is control, persuasion, a key to unlock what others dare not touch. You can be a master, Jerry, or you can be consumed." The words should have terrified him, but they didn't. They enticed him. The pulse in his veins matched the rhythm of the record, and a new thought formed, sharp and glittering. He could have this power. He could wield it, bend others to the beat, shape the world around him. He imagined himself walking down the streets, each footstep syncing with the pulse of the city, unseen forces bending subtly, people turning instinctively to his will. The allure was intoxicating. And then, just as the idea fully formed, a sharp, discordant note sliced through the melody, jarring him violently. The shopkeeper's smile twisted, becoming something less human, more predatory. But remember, Jerry, all grooves have their grooves. Every rhythm carries a price. Every note has a consequence. Jerry's heart leapt into his throat. He wanted to step back, to throw the record, to escape, but the music had ensnared him completely. It was no longer playing to him. He was playing to it a puppet dancing on invisible strings, exhilarated, terrified, and utterly enthralled. As the city outside moaned under the approaching storm, Jerry realized that this night, this record, this inexplicable magnetic rhythm had irrevocably changed him. He was no longer just a man. He was a conduit, a vessel for something alive, something hungry, something that could not be ignored. And somewhere deep in the back of his mind, a small, rational voice whispered a warning he was too entranced to heed. Power always demanded a price. And in the groove, Jerry Donovan had just signed the first line of his check. The next morning, Jerry awoke to a quiet apartment that felt different. The air was heavier, almost thick with potential, as if the room itself had absorbed the previous night's rhythm and now pulsed silently beneath his skin. He sat on the edge of the bed, hand trembling slightly as he remembered the shopkeeper's words, the twisted smile, the warning that had echoed in his mind even after sleep had tried to erase it. He shook his head, trying to dismiss it as a hallucination born of too much caffeine and too much loneliness, but the faint, persistent thrum in his veins insisted otherwise. For breakfast, he poured coffee into a chipped mug, each sip unusually bitter, yet somehow sharp and clarifying. The music from the record still lingered, though the grooves lay dormant, silent on the shelf as if resting, biding their time. Jerry's thoughts were restless, weaving themselves around the possibilities the record promised. Influence, power, a chance to step out of the dim shadows of mediocrity that had marked his life. But the memory of the discordant note, the subtle threat hidden behind the shopkeeper's grin, kept him grounded, just enough to hesitate. He looked at the clock. Time had passed normally, the city outside alive with its usual chaos. The honk of impatient drivers, the rhythmic footsteps of commuters, the occasional shout piercing the urban symphony. Jerry dressed quickly, choosing his clothes with unusual care. He felt the rhythm in his movements, a subtle sway in his step that he couldn't explain. The day stretched before him like a canvas, each moment waiting to be orchestrated. The first test came unexpectedly. At the elevator, his neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy, shuffled past him, her arms overloaded with grocery bags, her cat clinging to her shoulder like a small, furry satchel. Normally, she would mutter a sharp, judgmental remark, something to prick his confidence and reinforce his sense of invisibility. But today, she paused mid-step, tilting her head slightly as if listening to an unheard melody, her expression softening inexplicably. "Morning, Jerry," she said, with a brightness he had never heard in her voice. Jerry blinked. "Morning," he replied cautiously, unsure if he had imagined it. But as the elevator doors closed, he realized that the familiar disdain had melted away, replaced by a subtle warmth. It was nothing overt, nothing remarkable to anyone else, but to Jerry, it was a revelation. The groove, the record, the music, whatever had flowed through him last night had left a trace. It had already begun to shape the world around him, bending it in ways that thrilled and terrified him in equal measure. By mid-morning, Jerry's curiosity overpowered caution. He returned to his apartment, gently removing the record from its resting place. He hesitated only for a second before placing it on the turntable. The needle touched down, and the room once again filled with the living pulse of music. This time, however, he felt a different awareness, a subtle sense that the record was not merely playing, it was listening. Each note responded to his thoughts, each rhythm mirrored his desires. He experimented cautiously at first, shifting his intention, thinking a phrase, a suggestion, a wish. And, astonishingly, it responded. The first success was small. He thought of a stray cat that had been lingering outside his window for days, meowing pitifully in the cold. Within moments, the cat appeared in the room, curling on the rug as if drawn by an invisible hand. Jerry's breath caught in his throat. The power was real. The record was not just music, it was a conduit for influence, subtle but undeniable. Encouraged, he tried something bolder. He imagined the tiny inconveniences of his office life, the snide comments from a coworker, the impatience of his boss, the endless trivialities that had worn him down for years. He played a riff, a simple pattern, and as he did, he could feel the air around him tightening, the rhythm insinuating itself into the unseen currents of the world. By the end of the morning, the petty antagonists of his workplace seemed less threatening, their moods subtly aligned to the flow of his thoughts. But with every small victory, Jerry felt an undercurrent of unease. The music was seductive, intoxicating, but it demanded focus, attention, and compliance. It was alive, yes, but it was also patient, waiting for him to falter, to lose control. And in the corner of his mind, the shopkeeper's warning whispered insistently, All grooves have their grooves. Unable to resist, Jerry decided to test the record in public. He packed the vinyl carefully and took it with him to the city's Central Park, an open space alive with the randomness of human behavior. Families strolled, street performers showcased their talents, joggers moved in rhythmic unison. He found a secluded bench and placed the record on a portable turntable, plugging in headphones so that only he could hear the notes. As the music began, he felt the pulse of the park synchronize with him. Leaves quivered unnaturally on the trees, pigeons shifted in perfect rhythm, and even the passers-by seemed to move in a subtle choreography he could barely comprehend but instinctively guided. A man juggling oranges stumbled slightly, only to recover with an elegance that mirrored Jerry's inner tempo. Children, playing tag, ran in patterns that felt as though they were responding to invisible signals. A thrill ran through Jerry, sharp and bright, intoxicating in its intensity. The groove was not just influencing him, it was influencing life itself. For the first time in decades, he felt omnipotent, capable, untouchable. And yet, that thrill carried a subtle fear. He had never been trusted with control, with power, and now he was wielding it without oversight, without understanding the consequences. It was during a sudden improvisational riff, a daring, complex variation he had never tried before, that the first tangible consequence appeared. A jogger, caught in the amplified rhythm of the park, collided with a street vendor's cart, sending hot coffee and baked goods sprawling onto the cobblestones. The man shouted angrily, but then froze, eyes widening as if understanding for a split second that some unseen force had guided the chaos. Jerry's pulse raced. He had not intended harm, yet his music had orchestrated it. He withdrew the headphones, heart hammering. The record's surface shimmered faintly under the sunlight almost mockingly, as if acknowledging the beginning of his education in the cost of power. He realized that the music did not care about morality or intent. It simply amplified what he directed, raw and unfiltered, consequences trailing like shadows. By late afternoon, Jerry returned home, exhausted but exhilarated. The record seemed to vibrate softly in its sleeve, as if resting before the next lesson. He could not stop thinking about the shopkeeper, the man who had handed him the key to influence without so much as a hint of guidance. The man's eyes, dark and predatory, haunted him. Power always demands a price. That night, Jerry's apartment seemed to breathe with anticipation. He set the record on the turntable again, placing the needle with reverence. The music erupted, enveloping him, threading through his nerves and organs like a living thing. But this time he felt a subtle resistance, a pull from the outside, a push against his control. Something, or someone, was attuned to it. Du, das ist der Scientific The shopkeeper appeared suddenly in the room, leaning casually against the doorframe, smile impossibly wide. "You're learning quickly," he said, voice smooth and hypnotic. "But remember, the music is a dialogue, not a monologue. You may command it, but it also commands you." Jerry swallowed, trying to steady his voice. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt today. It just happened." The shopkeeper's eyes gleamed, amused, sharp. "Intent is irrelevant, Jerry. Every note has weight. Every rhythm leaves a mark, and the world has a way of balancing itself." Jerry felt a shiver run down his spine. He understood now, in a way that no words could convey, that he had stepped into a partnership with something far older, far more cunning than he could imagine. The music was alive, yes, but it was not benevolent. It thrived on obedience, on surrender, on trust, and it would take what it needed in its own time, whether he was ready or not. He nodded, almost imperceptibly, as the record continued to spin. The rhythm pulsed, filling the room, threading through the very walls, binding him in a strange, intoxicating embrace. He was hooked, addicted to the groove, and he knew with a cold certainty that life as he had known it had ended. The shopkeeper's warning had not been a threat. It had been prophecy. And Jerry Donovan, enthralled, exhilarated, terrified, realized that he had no choice but to follow the rhythm wherever it led, into the depths of influence, power, and ultimately, consequences yet unknown. Jerry woke the next morning to the insistent hum of the city below, but something was different. The rhythm of life outside seemed sharper, clearer, as though he could hear the beat of everyone's footsteps, the cadence of conversations, the subtle percussion of the world moving in synchrony. He rubbed his eyes, disoriented, sensing that the record had left more than an echo in his apartment. It had left a lingering imprint in him. Every pulse, every thump in his chest felt amplified, in tune with some secret, underlying frenzy. By mid-morning, he had taken the record from its shelf once again. The temptation was irresistible. The music called to him like a siren, promising clarity, power, and understanding. He placed the vinyl on the turntable with a ceremonial reverence, letting the needle descend, and immediately the room filled with the lush, living pulse of sound. But today, the music felt different. It seemed to whisper secrets, subtle motifs threading themselves through the melody, hinting at possibilities he had not yet considered, at consequences he could not yet anticipate. He closed his eyes and let himself drift in the groove, swaying gently as the rhythm guided him. It was intoxicating, exhilarating, and dangerous all at once. He began to imagine his co-workers again, particularly Alan, the officious man who had tormented him for years with petty criticisms and thinly veiled insults. He thought of Alan tripping over words in a meeting, losing his composure just for a moment, enough to taste vulnerability. The music responded instantly, a faint vibration through the room, as if echoing his intent. Later that day, Jerry returned to the office, cautious but confident. Alan was at his desk humming softly to himself, unaware of the subtle manipulation swirling around him. Jerry noticed a change. Alan fidgeted, stammered, lost his usual polished demeanor. The satisfaction coursing through Jerry was brief, though, as he realized that this manipulation carried a weight he could not control. Alan's discomfort was minor, yet unmistakable, and Jerry's sense of triumph was tinged with guilt. The groove was intoxicating, yes, but it demanded care, attention, subtlety, and Jerry had already glimpsed how easily one could overstep. By evening, he returned home, exhaustion settling into his limbs. The apartment seemed alive, still vibrating faintly with the record's residual rhythm. He hesitated before playing it again, the shopkeeper's warnings echoing in his mind. Every note had a consequence. Every rhythm left a mark. But the temptation was overwhelming. Jerry was addicted, bound by the lure of influence and the thrill of power. He set the record on the turntable and lowered the needle, letting the music wash over him. This time, however, he allowed himself to experiment, trying subtle variations, improvisations that he had never attempted before. The music responded fluidly, weaving around him, guiding him, teaching him. He felt a deep sense of connection to something vast, something ancient. The rhythm was no longer merely a tool. It was a partner, a living entity that could not be denied. And then he noticed it. Subtle disturbances in the music itself. Discordant whispers, faint shadows within the melody, tiny ripples that seemed to hint at resistance. Jerry paused, hand hovering over the needle, heart pounding. The shopkeeper's face appeared in his mind, eyes glinting, smile impossibly wide. "The music commands you as much as you command it," he had said. Jerry felt the truth of that statement with a chilling clarity. Determined to understand the limits of his newfound power, he decided to test the record outside again. This time, he brought it to a crowded subway station. People moved in their usual patterns, oblivious to the subtle currents of influence around them. Jerry placed the record on a portable turntable and let the first notes fill his headphones. Instantly, he felt a surge of connection, the pulse of the crowd syncing to the rhythm he played. He experimented carefully, nudging minor movements, guiding individuals subtly without drawing attention. A commuter hesitated, then stepped aside. Another adjusted the timing of their stride. A street musician's fingers faltered, producing an unintended but harmonious variation of the song he played. Jerry's confidence surged. He could orchestrate the world around him, shape it in invisible ways. But the longer he played, the more he realized the music had its own agenda. A man in a dark coat lingered at the edge of his awareness, a shadow he could not fully perceive, yet felt watching, judging, waiting. Jerry's pulse quickened. The record was teaching him, yes, but it was also testing him, probing the boundaries of his will, reminding him that control was never absolute. He returned home that night, drained yet exhilarated, and allowed himself a moment of reflection. The power he wielded was intoxicating, but it came with a price. He could feel the strain in his mind, the subtle erosion of his autonomy, the sense that the music was seeping into his very being, threading through his thoughts, shaping his desires. He realized that every use of the record bound him closer to it, like a vine wrapping around a tree, slow, insistent, inevitable. As he lay in bed, Jerry's mind replayed the events of the past few days, a montage of subtle manipulations, minor triumphs, and fleeting consequences. The thrill of power, the intoxicating sensation of bending the world to his will, was undeniable. But beneath it, a persistent, gnawing fear had taken root, the knowledge that one misstep could unravel everything, that the groove he had embraced so eagerly was patient, cunning, and ultimately unforgiving. Sleep eventually claimed him, but it was restless, filled with fragments of melodies and shadows, half-formed images of the shopkeeper's grin, of crowds moving in strange, hypnotic patterns, of consequences he could not yet foresee. He awoke in the early hours of the morning to a faint hum, the apartment vibrating subtly as if alive. The record had been resting on the shelf, yet he could feel its presence, insistent and commanding, a silent summons he could not ignore. By the next day, Jerry's experiments became bolder. He tested the limits of influence on coworkers, on pedestrians, on strangers in cafes. Each success fueled his addiction, each subtle manipulation reinforcing his sense of mastery. Yet with every act he felt the strain of overreach, the subtle tug of the music asserting its own will, reminding him that influence was not without consequence. Late one evening, while experimenting with a complex variation of rhythm that mimicked human speech patterns, he noticed a small, almost imperceptible shift in the melody. A warning, a question, a challenge. The shopkeeper appeared in his mind once more, voice soft, hypnotic, and chilling. Every groove has its groove, Jerry. Every note has its price. The warning resonated deeply. Jerry realized that he had only glimpsed the surface of what the record offered, and the depths below were far more dangerous, far more seductive. He understood, with a sudden clarity that made his heart race, that he was no longer a casual user of the music. He was bound to it, intertwined with its rhythm in ways he could barely comprehend, and every choice he made, every note he played, was a step further into unknown territory. By the end of that day, Jerry's apartment felt charged, electric, almost alive. The record pulsed faintly, a silent heartbeat echoing through the walls, through his veins, through his very consciousness. He knew that tomorrow would demand more skill, more cunning, more restraint, and he knew, with an unshakable certainty, that the record was patient. It would wait, it would watch, and when the time came, it would demand repayment for every note, every manipulation, every thrill. Jerry Donovan had stepped into a world where power and danger intertwined, where music was a living, breathing entity that both served and enslaved. And as he lay awake, listening to the faint hum of the city, he understood one immutable truth. The groove had chosen him, and there was no turning back. Jerry awoke to the distant clatter of the city, but the sound was no longer random. It was orchestrated. Every footstep, every horn, every cough seemed to align with an invisible rhythm, as though the world itself were a vast symphony and he had been given the conductor's baton. He sat up slowly, the sheets tangling around him, and for a fleeting moment he felt both exhilarated and terrified. The record's influence was no longer confined to his apartment. It had seeped into him, into the very way he perceived the world. He dressed quickly, the ritual of selecting his clothes taking on a newfound intensity. He chose colors, fabrics, and even the pattern of his tie based not on aesthetics, but on how they would sound in the rhythm of the day. Jerry had begun to perceive the world in a new way, a musical overlay atop reality. The subway, normally a chaotic, unpleasant experience, now seemed like a moving orchestra. Each commuter a note, each movement an instrument. He could feel subtle changes in the tempo of the crowd, shifts in the minor and major chords of human behavior. At work, the record had taken root in his consciousness in a way that he could not ignore. He no longer relied solely on manipulation through the music. He had begun to anticipate reactions, to predict responses with uncanny accuracy. Alan, his perennial tormentor, faltered in his presentation, stumbling over words in a way that was both subtle and delicious. Jerry restrained himself from overt gloating, letting the music weave its magic behind the scenes. He realized that influence through rhythm required finesse, too much, and it became obvious, too little, and it risked failure. By mid-afternoon, Jerry's confidence had grown to a dangerous level. He began experimenting with more audacious manipulations, orchestrating conversations, nudging decisions, and even influencing small financial transactions in the office. He was careful, meticulous, and deliberate, aware that the groove demanded precision. And yet, beneath this burgeoning mastery, a faint tremor of unease persisted. He could feel the price lurking, patient, waiting for the moment he overstepped, a shadow tethered to every note. Returning home that evening, Jerry felt a peculiar excitement. He set the record on the turntable and lowered the needle, the familiar pulse flooding the apartment. This time, he allowed himself a longer session, exploring improvisations that were more complex, weaving subtle variations into the melody. He could feel the music responding, bending and flexing as though alive, a dialogue that was equal parts thrilling and dangerous. Hours passed unnoticed. Jerry moved with the rhythm, orchestrating imaginary movements, experimenting with minor influences on the world outside his walls. The apartment seemed to vibrate in tune with him, responding to each flick of his wrist, each thought that shaped the next note. He felt an intoxicating sense of omnipotence. For the first time in his life, he was not merely observing existence. He was shaping it, guiding it, playing it like an instrument that had always existed solely for him. Then came the first true test. A knock at the door, unexpected, urgent. Jerry froze, heart hammering. Visitors were rare in his life, and anyone entering his apartment without prior notice was a disruption he could ill afford. Yet the rhythm persisted, steady and insistent, coaxing him to meet it. He opened the door to find a young woman, drenched from the rain, clutching a small, soaked notebook. Her eyes were wide, anxious, and something in her presence resonated with the music, a faint vibration that suggested she had unknowingly become a part of the pattern he was weaving. "Please," she said, voice trembling. "I was told you could help. I don't know if it's true, but—" Jerry studied her carefully. The rhythm pulsed beneath his skin, aligning with her heartbeat, her hesitation, her fear. The music whispered, nudging him toward action, promising control, promising mastery. He stepped aside, motioning for her to enter, aware that the record would accompany every movement, every thought, subtly guiding the interaction. "What's the problem?" he asked, voice calm, even as the pulse in his veins quickened. She explained quickly, haltingly, that she had been trying to get someone's attention, someone important, but no matter what she did, she was ignored, overlooked. She had heard whispers of a man who could influence events, shape outcomes, and perhaps, in some mysterious way, guide the world in ways others could not perceive. Jerry's pulse raced as the implications became clear. The music, the record, his own emerging mastery. This was the test, the opportunity he had been waiting for. He placed the record on the turntable and lowered the needle, letting the familiar pulse fill the room. The rhythm reached out, touching the young woman subtly, coaxing her movements, aligning her gestures, her words, her intent with his own. Jerry felt the power thrumming beneath his skin, a wave of exhilaration that both thrilled and terrified him. He guided her through the conversation, offering suggestions, subtle nudges, each aligned perfectly with the rhythm. The results were immediate. Her confidence grew, her words flowed naturally, and by the end of the interaction, she had achieved the outcome she sought. She looked at Jerry with a mixture of gratitude and awe, unaware of the invisible influence that had orchestrated her success. Jerry felt a surge of satisfaction, a dangerous, intoxicating pleasure that left him both elated and anxious. As she left, the apartment returned to its quiet hum, but the underlying pulse of the record seemed stronger, more insistent. Jerry realized that each use of the groove was a bond, a tether that grew with every act of manipulation, a connection that was both thrilling and perilous. He could feel the presence of the shopkeeper in the rhythm, an unseen observer, measuring, evaluating, waiting for the moment when Jerry might falter. That night, Jerry lay awake, the city outside vibrating with its own secret rhythm. He thought of the woman, of the subtle orchestration of events, of the power he now held. And yet, he could not ignore the faint, discordant undercurrent, a shadow in the melody that reminded him of the cost, the consequences lurking in the unseen spaces between notes. He realized, with a clarity that was both exhilarating and terrifying, that the groove was not merely a tool. It was a force, patient and unyielding, guiding him, testing him, shaping him in ways he did not yet understand. Each choice he made, each manipulation, each experiment, was a step further into its depths, a journey from which he might never return unchanged. Jerry Donovan had become more than a man. He was a conduit, a vessel, a player in a vast, invisible symphony whose rules were subtle, complex, and unyielding. And as he drifted into a restless sleep, he knew that the record would call him again, that the groove would demand more, and that the path he had chosen was a treacherous one, lined with exhilaration, obsession, and consequences yet unknown. The argument between Dalton and Ray seemed to alter the chemistry of the entire booth, as if their voices had left scratches on the air that continued vibrating long after they fell silent. Dalton spent the next morning pacing the station's corridors like a man trying to outrun himself. He told no one about the tape, no one about the way Ray had practically begged, no one about the strange mix of guilt and thrill coiling around his ribs. He told himself he would delete the recording before the night arrived. He even sat down to do it once, staring at the little file name glowing on his editing screen. His finger hovered over the key, then hovered a little longer, then withdrew entirely. "Not yet," he heard a voice whisper somewhere beneath thought. "Not yet. You need to understand first." He didn't know if that voice was Marcia's or his own. All day, he tried to shake the memory of her face, the way she had looked at him, the way her lips had parted like someone about to confide a secret she couldn't tell anyone else. It was ridiculous, he told himself. He had known her for barely a day. She was a guest, a fleeting presence drifting through the station's sterile hallways, and yet her voice remained with him, a warm, living thing crowding his head, squeezing out the logical space he normally used to maneuver his obligations. It was as if, in that recording booth, she had drawn a chalk circle around the two of them, and the chalk's outline had not vanished after she walked out. A little after noon, Dalton wandered outside into the station's parking lot, a place lined with heat-sick asphalt and metal fences that hummed under the sun. He didn't know why he needed air, but he needed it desperately. He realized he had forgotten to pack lunch, or maybe he had packed it and left it on the counter. His mind felt full of static. At the edge of the lot, he saw a man leafing through a crate of used CDs. It was an older guy, gray ponytail, denim vest, eyes like someone who had known 20 too many nightclubs in the 80s. A cardboard sign hung from his stand. Old Souls, Rare Tracks, Vinyl Resurrection. Dalton didn't need music, but the booth inside his mind wouldn't quiet, so he drifted over. "You look like a guy with too many songs in his head," the vendor said without looking up. Dalton cracked half a laugh. "Something like that. Radio man." Dalton stiffened. "Yeah, how did you—" "You've got that posture," the vendor said, tapping his temple, like you're listening even when no one's talking. Dalton felt a shiver crawl down his arms. Something like that, he repeated. The vendor rummaged in the crate and pulled out a CD with a handwritten cover. A woman's silhouette was sketched in thick black pencil, head tilted back as if she were singing. "This one's special," he said. "Never got a commercial release. Woman sang like she was burning from the inside out." "What happened to her?" Dalton asked. The vendor shrugged. "Some voices aren't meant for the world. They choose who hears them." Dalton blinked, unsettled by the phrasing, and by how directly the man's tone seemed to pierce the fog he'd been carrying since the previous night. "How much?" he asked. The vendor smiled. "For you? 20. Dalton didn't even haggle. He paid, slipped the CD into his bag, and walked back to the station with a peculiar gravity in his chest as if something unseen had magnetized him. He wasn't sure why he bought it. He wasn't even sure he intended to listen to it. But the sketch on the cover reminded him painfully of Marcia's posture when she leaned toward the mic, chin tilted up ever so slightly, throat offered like a vulnerable shape carved from light. When he stepped back inside, the cool air of the station hit him like a wave, and before he could orient himself, Tara was standing in front of him. "Dalton," she said sharply, "we need to talk?" Her makeup was immaculate but smudged beneath the eyes, betraying a stress she couldn't fully mask. She looked like someone who had spent her lunch break crying in a bathroom stall and meticulously repairing the damage. "What's wrong?" Dalton asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. "It's about Ray," she said. "He didn't come in today." Dalton felt his heart skip. "What do you mean he didn't come in? He's always here before me." "I know," she said. "He texted an hour ago, said he quit." The word fell like a stone in Dalton's stomach. Quit. Ray didn't quit things. Ray clung to things. Ray clung to that booth like a drowning man clung to a buoy. Dalton swallowed. "Did he say why?" "No." Tara lowered her voice. "But he told management he refused to work under someone who would stab him in the back." Dalton's throat tightened. The air around him seemed to thicken, become gelatinous and unbreathable. Tara studied him closely. "Dalton, is there something going on I should know about?" He opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time since he'd met her, Tara looked frightened. Not for herself, but for him. It struck him with an unexpected sharpness. "I don't know," Dalton said honestly. Tara nodded slowly, as if confirming something she had suspected for weeks. "You're not yourself lately," she said. "Ray wasn't the only one who noticed." Dalton rubbed his forehead. "Tara, He didn't know what he wanted to say. That he'd been hearing Marcia's voice long after the broadcast ended? That he felt something in it? Something unfamiliar, like a frequency tuned just for him? That he hadn't slept properly since? No explanation sounded sane, even inside his own skull. Tara touched his arm. "Take the day," she said softly. "You look like you need it." But Dalton shook his head. "I'll be fine." Tara didn't argue, but as she walked away, Dalton saw her glance back over her shoulder twice. The concern etched across her features pierced him in a way he hadn't expected. He sat at his desk for half an hour without moving, staring at the microphone in the booth beyond the window, remembering Ray's trembling hands, the way his voice cracked like a child begging not to lose his place in the world. Finally, he plugged in his headphones and inserted the new CD. A soft hiss filled the line, an artifact of old analog transfer. Then a woman's voice slid into the soundscape, low and trembling, like velvet scraping against stone. It wasn't Marcia's voice, but it carried that same quality of intimacy, as if the singer didn't want the world to hear her, only him. Dalton closed his eyes. For several minutes, he listened without breathing. The song was raw, unpolished, but alive in a way that made the clean professionalism of his modern playlists feel sterile. The woman's voice rose slowly, building pressure, filling all the hollow spaces in him until he felt full to the edge. Then he jumped, because suddenly, through the headphones between breaths of melody, another voice whispered. "You hear it too." Dalton's eyes snapped open. He yanked the headphones off. His heart hammered against his ribs like a fist trying to break out. The booth window was empty. The station hallway was silent. His computer screen glowed innocently, showing nothing unusual. He stared at the headphones. No, he had imagined it. It had been part of the track. An old sample. A backing vocal. Something rational. something explainable. But even as he tried to steady himself, he realized the whispered words were not on the track. He knew because the whisper was familiar in a way that made his blood temperature shift. It was Marcia's voice. Dalton rose abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor, and walked toward the booth as if pulled by the collar. He stepped inside and inhaled sharply, waiting, absurdly, for her scent, as if she might be in the room despite every fact insisting otherwise. The booth was empty, quiet, unlit. Then the phone rang. He startled. The sound echoed in the silence like an alarm bell. He rushed back to his desk and answered. "Dalton?" a soft voice said. "It's me." His pulse surged so hard he felt lightheaded. "Marcia? I hope it's okay that I'm calling earlier," she said, voice trembling the way it had last night, a tremble that felt crafted yet still strangely real. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about our show, about how you listened." Dalton gripped the phone tighter. "I haven't been able to stop thinking either." There was a soft inhale on the line. "Can I come in again tonight?" she asked. "I have something I want to share, something I can only tell you." Dalton closed his eyes. Yes. The word slipped out of him without thought, without caution, without anything resembling the common sense he had built his career on. "Good," she whispered. "Tonight, then." "And Dalton?" "Yes? Don't let anyone else hear the tape." The line went dead. Dalton slowly lowered the phone. He didn't recall telling her about the tape. He didn't recall telling her anything at all. But she knew. And for reasons he could not articulate, could not even fully grasp, he felt a swell of something like exhilaration pushing against his ribs. He wasn't afraid. He was awake. And tonight, she was coming back. Dalton spent the rest of the afternoon in a state suspended between anticipation and dread. Like a man waiting for a storm he secretly hoped would strike directly above him. Every time he glanced at the booth, he felt a pulse of adrenaline warm his palms. Every tiny sound in the station's hallway, shoes squeaking, distant laughter, the faint slam of a door, sent his nerves jumping as if each noise were a signal, a code, something only he was meant to decipher. And through all of it, her voice threaded through his mind like a ribbon being pulled taut. "Don't let anyone else hear the tape." The warning clung to him, curling around each breath. He replayed their phone call again and again, searching for nuance, for subtext, for anything that might explain how she seemed to know things he hadn't spoken aloud. But the more he replayed, the less certain he became. Had he really heard her say that? Had he imagined it? He tried to dismiss the idea, but some instinct deeper than thought, older than experience, insisted that what he'd heard had been real. By 5 o'clock, Tara reappeared at his desk with 2 coffees in hand. She set one beside him gently, as if afraid a sudden movement might shatter him. "You look like you haven't blinked in hours," she said. He forced a small smile, just distracted. "Dalton, listen." She hesitated, running her thumb along the cardboard seam of her cup. "I'm worried about you. This whole thing with Ray, whatever happened, it's affecting you more than you want to admit." Dalton stiffened. "I'll deal with it." "That's the problem," Tara said softly. "You always deal with everything alone. I don't know what's going on, but I know you. Something is eating at you and it's getting worse, not better." He looked away. "It's fine." "No," she insisted, leaning closer, dropping her voice. "It isn't. You're shaking." Dalton hadn't realized he was. He pressed his hands flat against the desk to steady them. Tara sighed. "You know I'm on your side, right?" He nodded, and a surge of guilt stung him. He didn't want to lie to her, but he also didn't want her anywhere near the truth. The truth wasn't safe. The truth was a force he no longer felt entirely in control of. Before Tara could say anything else, a cluster of interns passed by, arguing loudly about scheduling conflicts, and she retreated back into professional mode. "I'll be in Studio B," she said, "if you need anything." "Thanks," Dalton murmured. But he knew he wouldn't go to her. At E6, he forced himself to eat half a sandwich. At 7, he replayed Marcia's first call-in segment, listening for something he might have missed. Some hint, some clue, something rational. But each time her voice slid into the speakers, his heart rate spiked. There was that impossible intimacy again, that quiet rawness, that uncanny sense that she wasn't performing but speaking directly into the hollow spaces inside him. By 9, the station had thinned out. Only a few late-night editors and the janitorial staff remained. Lights flickered off one by one across the upper floors. Dalton sat in the half-lit newsroom, tapping his foot, glancing at the clock every 30 seconds. His nerves were stretched tight, but beneath them was a humming anticipation that almost frightened him. When 10 arrived, the air pressure in the room seemed to shift. He didn't hear footsteps. There was no knock, no rustle of fabric, no opening door. But he felt her before he saw her. Marcia appeared in the hallway outside the booth, wearing the same dark coat as the night before, her hair loose over her shoulders, her eyes focused on him with such clarity that he felt momentarily stripped bare. She stepped into the room with a kind of quiet purpose, as if she'd been here 1,000 times, as if she belonged. "Dalton," she said, her voice sliding into him like a warm note. "Thank you for staying." He rose without realizing it. "Of course." She smiled, a small, fragile, grateful smile that made his pulse stutter. "I brought something," she said, lifting a worn leather notebook, "but I want to talk before anything goes on air." "Sure, anything." She crossed the space between them so slowly that the room seemed to shrink around her. When she stood an arm's length away, he could see that her eyes weren't simply blue. They were an unsettling blend of shades, shifting subtly, catching and reflecting even the dimmest light. He couldn't look away. "Dalton, last night meant something to me." Her voice trembled. "Maybe it shouldn't have. Maybe it was foolish. But when I spoke in that room, I didn't feel alone." He swallowed. "You weren't?" Her breath hitched. "And you listened. Really listened. No one does that anymore." She stepped closer, so close he could smell the faintest hint of jasmine and rain on her coat. "I need to tell someone my story," she whispered. "Someone who won't twist it. Someone who hears the truth under the words." Dalton nodded, though a small part of him, deep, rational, barely living, whispered caution. But he ignored it. He was beyond caution. "Then tell me," he said. Marcia exhaled shakily. "I used to sing," she said, "before everything went wrong. Before people started treating me like a commodity. Before those nights when the music stopped being mine." She opened the notebook and revealed page after page of frantic, looping handwriting. "It's all in here. What happened? What I lost? What I want back." Dalton reached out instinctively, but Marcia drew the notebook back against her chest. "No," she murmured. "Not yet. Not until I'm sure of you." "Sure of me how?" Her eyes pierced him. "Sure that you'll choose me." A ripple of something cold crept down his spine. "Choose you over what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she placed a hand lightly on his chest, barely touching, but enough to ignite a heat that spread through him in a shudder. "Don't play the tape for anyone," she whispered. "Promise me." He felt her breath against his neck. His heartbeat faltered. "I promise?" Her entire posture softened. "Good, then we can begin." She brushed past him and slipped into the booth. Dalton followed her, closing the door behind them. The booth felt smaller tonight, the air thicker. The glow from the console washed over Marcia's face, outlining her in gentle halos. She sat down, set the notebook beside the mic, and placed her lips dangerously close to the screen of metal mesh. Dalton adjusted the levels with trembling fingers. "Ready?" he asked. Marcia nodded. "More than you know." He signaled and started recording. Marcia inhaled deeply. "This is a story about a girl who loved sound," she began, her voice folding around each word like silk. "A girl who learned how to slip between frequencies, to find the hidden places inside people where their loneliest truths lived. And once she found those places, she stayed." Dalton's breath caught. Marcia's voice dropped. "I want to stay in yours, Dalton." He straightened, shocked. "Marcia!" "Shh," she whispered. "Just listen." Her story continued. Fragments of a life torn apart by promises, betrayals, obsessions. But each sentence seemed to blur into something else beneath the surface, something not quite literal, something almost musical. And the longer Dalton listened, the more the words started to feel like a rhythm pulsing in his bones. Halfway through the recording, the studio lights flickered. Dalton glanced up. Marcia didn't. The flicker turned into a longer dimming. 3 seconds, 4. A low hum vibrated through the walls. Then the lights steadied again. Dalton exhaled shakily. "Did you see that?" "Yes," she murmured. "It happens when I'm trying to reach someone." "Reach?" She turned to him slowly. her eyes luminous in the booth's low light. "You feel it, don't you? The pull?" He swallowed. "I don't know." "You do?" She smiled, a thin, knowing smile. "And that means I'm close." Before he could respond, the station door slammed somewhere down the hall, loud enough to penetrate the soundproofing. Dalton jumped. Marcia didn't move. A second slam. A voice, faint, urgent, called, "Dalton?" "Tara." She was getting closer. Marcia's expression darkened. "Turn it off," she whispered sharply. "Now." Dalton hesitated, caught between panic and something deeper, something needful. "Dalton?" Tara called again, right outside. Marcia leaned forward, eyes burning into his. "If she hears me," she said softly, "everything ends." Dalton froze. Tara's hand hit the booth door. Marcia watched him, waiting. "Dalton, are you in there?" He reached for the switch and stopped. For one suspended second, thin as glass, sharp as ice, Dalton held his breath, his fingertips hovering over the switch that would cut Marcia's voice from the air. The booth seemed to shrink around him, closing in on the edges of his vision. Marcia's stare was fixed on him with a fierce, almost predatory intensity, as if she could feel his pulse beating beneath his skin. Tara's voice just outside the door felt like a hand reaching into a vortex, a plea cutting through a fevered dream. "Dalton?" Tara called again, this time with a rising note of concern. The handle rattled. "Are you okay?" Marcia's voice brushed across the room, quiet, razor thin. "Choose?" His breath trembled as he whispered, "Tara, I—" The door jerked open before he finished. Tara stepped halfway inside, halting abruptly as she saw Marcia seated in the booth, her lips inches from the microphone, her face partially shadowed by the dim light. Tara blinked, startled. "Oh, I didn't know you had a guest." Dalton scrambled for composure. "Tara, I'm recording. Can it wait?" She hesitated. Her gaze dropped to Dalton's shaking hand still hovering over the switch. Her brow furrowed. "You look pale. What's going on?" Marcia spoke softly, too softly for Tara to hear, yet the words pierced Dalton flawlessly. "Don't tell her. Don't let her near this." He swallowed hard. "I'm fine. Really?" Tara's eyes flicked to Marcia again. Is she the caller from last night?" Dalton's throat closed. "Yes, this is Marcia." Tara stepped closer, tentatively, peering through the small glass window of the booth. Marcia turned her head slowly toward Tara, her expression unreadable. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She simply looked at her, a gaze so calm and cold that Dalton felt a faint tremor run through the floor beneath him. "Hi," Tara said cautiously, lifting a hand in a polite half-wave. "I'm Tara. I work—" Marcia leaned toward the mic, her voice low, controlled, but carrying a weight that made Dalton's lungs tighten. "Dalton, turn it back on." Tara's brows knitted. "Turn what back on?" Dalton realized he had instinctively lowered one of the sliders when she burst in. "It's nothing," he said quickly. But Tara stepped deeper into the room now, noticing the frayed energy in the air. "Dalton, seriously, can we talk? Outside, just for a minute." Marcia's eyes flashed. "Don't leave," she whispered. The air seemed to thicken between the three of them. Dalton took a slow breath and forced himself to stand. "Tara, 1 minute, okay?" Marcia's jaw tightened, but she didn't move. She watched him with an expression that chilled him, an expression that felt like disappointment twisted with warning. Tara stepped out of the room, motioning for him to follow. Dalton closed the door behind him, and for the first time in hours, Marcia's voice was sealed away. He felt the sudden absence like a sudden cold draft, a vacuum where her presence had been. Tara led him down the short hallway toward the editing bay, speaking only once they were out of Marcia's earshot. "What is happening with you?" she whispered urgently. "You look terrified." "I'm not," he said, but the denial sounded hollow even to him. "She walked in here like she owned the place. And you, Dalton, you're acting like you're under some kind of spell. I'm not saying she's dangerous, but—" "She's not dangerous," he snapped more sharply than he intended. Tara recoiled slightly. "I didn't say she was. I'm just worried. Something feels off." Dalton ran a hand through his hair. "I know. I need to do this. She needs me." "No," Tara said softly. "You need her. Look at yourself. You're shaking. You haven't eaten. You're not sleeping. Dalton, Please, step back from this, just for tonight. Her voice was raw with sincerity. For a moment, he felt the warmth of it. Steady, real, human, pulling him back from whatever edge he'd wandered toward. Tara wasn't a voice on a tape. Tara was here, right in front of him. Solid, familiar, safe. "Tara, I can't," he whispered. She looked heartbroken. Why not? He hesitated, because the truth, the real truth, was impossible to explain. How could he tell her about the way Marcia's voice had wrapped itself around him like a thread tightening with every breath? How could he explain the flickering lights, the humming walls, the way the air changed when she spoke, or the strange, impossible certainty that if he let her go, something inside him would snap? Instead, he said the only thing he could muster. "I made her a promise." Tara exhaled, defeated. "Then promise me something else. Just be careful, okay?" Dalton nodded. She touched his arm gently, a gesture that sent a surprising wave of comfort through him. "I'll be in Studio B if you need me." He watched her walk away, each step echoing down the empty hall until she disappeared behind the door. Dalton stood alone for a long moment, feeling the pull. Two opposite forces tugging at him from two different worlds. Then he turned back toward the booth. The second he opened the door, the air felt warmer, denser, vibrating faintly as if someone had plucked an invisible string stretching across the room. Marcia sat exactly where he left her, but her posture had changed. Still, upright, alert, like someone who had been listening closely to something he couldn't hear. "You shouldn't have left," she murmured. "I told you I'd be right back." "You hesitated." Her voice was a low hum, not angry, disappointed. "You're letting her get in your head." "No, Dalton," she said softly. "Look at me." He did. Her gaze locked onto his with such intensity that it felt like the room tilted slightly. "Do you feel safer with her? Is that why you ran to her?" "I didn't run," he snapped, stung. "You did." Marcia rose slowly, stepping out of the booth, each movement fluid like she was gliding rather than walking. "You left me here alone, while I was opening myself to you, while I was trusting you." Her words lodged under his ribcage. "Marcia, it wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." She took another step toward him. "And you need to decide who you belong to." The phrase hit him with the same force as a sudden cold wind. "Belong to?" She smiled, a fragile, almost sorrowful smile. "Dalton, I don't want to lose you." Something in her voice, the tremble, the ache, pulled him forward until he was close enough to feel her breath on his cheek. "You're not going to lose me," he whispered. Marcia's eyes shimmered, as though those words had awakened something behind them. "Then prove it," he exhaled. "How?" She lifted her hand and placed it lightly on the side of his face. The warmth of her palm spread through him in a slow, intoxicating wave. "Let me finish the story, without interruptions, without her watching, without her touching your thoughts." He swallowed hard. "All right." Marcia stepped back into the booth, and Dalton followed, closing the door behind them. The tiny space felt suffocating in the best possible way, like a sealed chamber built for secrets. Marcia lowered herself back into the chair, opened her notebook, and placed her lips near the mic with reverence. "Where were we?" she murmured. Dalton adjusted the levels. "You were talking about the girl who slipped between frequencies." "Ah," she whispered, smiling. "Yes." She inhaled deeply. "And about the man she found." Dalton blinked. "The man?" Marcia looked straight at him as she spoke into the mic. "She found him because his life was full of cracks, empty spaces, weak spots in the walls he built, places where the sound could get in." Dalton tensed. She could hear him even when he wasn't speaking. Marcia continued. She could feel the loneliness humming in him like a broken wire. He felt a tremor inside his chest, and she knew, if she reached deep enough, she could make him hers. The booth lights flickered again. Marcia didn't stop. She knew he would choose her, even if he didn't know it yet. Dalton's mouth went dry. "Marcia!" She paused, eyes burning into him. "I know what Tara wants," she whispered, "but she can't have you. Not anymore." Before Dalton could react, a loud crash echoed from down the hall, followed by Tara's distant voice calling his name, strained, frightened, urgent. Dalton turned toward the door. Marcia's voice cut through the booth, sharp as a blade. "Don't you dare go to her." Donnie didn't remember how he got from the ambulance to the hospital room. There were pieces, police officers shouting questions, the thin chemical stink of antiseptic, the buzz of fluorescent lights, but none of it lined up in a straight line. It all felt like a shuffled deck of images, scenes tossed across the floor of his mind, impossible to gather, impossible to reassemble. What he did remember clearly, painfully, was the sound of the overhead speakers in the hallway humming faintly, as if waiting, listening, calling his name without words. He could swear he heard a pulse inside that hum, like the faint heartbeat of a machine deciding whether to live or die. He tried to turn his head away from it, but the movement made his skull throb. A silhouette stepped in front of him. A nurse? A doctor? A shadow? He blinked hard, trying to anchor the moment, to put weight on something real. "Mr. Ferguson," a voice said. Warm, professional, human. "You're awake. Try not to move too fast. You've had a concussion, severe dehydration, and your blood pressure dropped dangerously low." Donnie's throat burned when he tried to speak. "Ruth?" It came out more like a cough than a name. The doctor, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, put one hand on Donnie's shoulder. "We're doing everything we can. Rest. We'll talk more when you're stable." Donnie's heart kicked against his ribs with animal panic. "Where is she?" "She's here," the doctor answered. "She's being monitored. But you need to calm down, please. Your heart rate—" But Donnie didn't hear the rest. His mind had snagged on the first part of the sentence. She's here, Ruth is here, except nothing about that sentence felt reassuring. It felt like a warning, a threat wrapped in kindness. His eyes fluttered closed. He let them. Not because he felt safe, but because he was too weak to fight the dark tide dragging him under. His last conscious thought was not about surviving. It was about the speakers, and the hum behind them that didn't sound like electricity at all. When he surfaced again, the room was dim and quiet. Quiet in the way a forest becomes quiet right before a predator moves. He sat up slowly, the pain in his temples pulsing like a bruise pressing outward. There was a chair beside his bed, empty. A cup of water on the table, untouched. A half-drawn curtain revealing the next hospital bed. Only it wasn't empty. Someone was lying there. Someone with dark hair spilling across the pillow like tangled thread. Someone whose breathing he recognized immediately, though he'd never listened for it before. Ruth. She lay on her side, facing away from him, one arm hanging limply off the mattress. Tubes connected her to a heart monitor that beat in slow, stubborn defiance. Beep, pause, beep, a fragile rhythm. "Ruth?" Donnie whispered. No answer. He slid his legs over the edge of the bed, his knees trembling under the weight of his own body. Every part of him ached, but none of it mattered. He had to see her. He had to know. When he reached her bedside, the first thing he noticed was the tape at her wrist, holding down the sensor of her monitor. Then the small bruise where someone had taken blood. Then the way the fluorescent lights caught the sheen of sweat along her neck. She looked like she'd been running from something in her sleep. "Ruth," he said again, louder. Still no answer. He reached out, touched her shoulder. Her skin was warm. She flinched. Donnie jerked his hand back in shock. Her eyes snapped open. Not slowly, not groggily, but with immediate sharpness, like a person waking from a nightmare mid-scream but stopping just before the sound. Her pupils were too large. Her expression too blank. "Donnie," she said, voice distant, flattened, wrong. "You're awake." He swallowed. "What happened to you?" Her lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I came to help you. You were hurt. I tried to protect you." He felt a cold wind move through him even though the room was still. "Protect me? From who?" Ruth didn't blink. "From June." His heart froze for the beat. "Maybe two." "That's not possible," he whispered. Ruth tilted her head in a way that felt mechanical, studied, as though learning how to imitate human gestures. "She tried to hurt you. I couldn't let her." He stepped back. The monitor beside her bed spiked. Beep, 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 beep. She didn't even look at it. "June wasn't trying to hurt me," Donnie said, more to convince himself than her. "You saw something that wasn't—" "It was real," Ruth interrupted. "She wanted to take you away. I heard her. I heard everything." He shook his head slowly. "No, you heard the radio, or thought you did. Ruth, You need help." Those two words made her tense. Something flickered behind her eyes. Fear or rage, he couldn't tell. The lights above them buzzed faintly. Or maybe that was the hum again. The same hum he'd heard in the hallway. Familiar. Hungry. "Donnie," she whispered, voice slipping into something softer, pleading. "I did everything for you. I just wanted you to listen. You weren't supposed to get hurt. I didn't want that. I just wanted us to be in sync." He took another step back. "In sync?" Her smile returned. Wider now. Too wide. "In the groove." His breath caught. The words felt rehearsed, like she was quoting something. Then it hit him. The flashing memory of the static-filled broadcast in the radio booth. The distorted voice whispering in the groove until the words felt engraved into his skull. The same phrase that had echoed during his blackout. The same phrase that had crawled into the hollow spaces of his mind like a parasite searching for warmth. "Ruth," he said slowly, carefully, "did you hear that phrase before today?" She blinked. Once, twice. The third blink was slower. "It's always been there. It's always calling. You don't hear it?" He did. Not clearly. But the hum in the ceiling, the one he'd assumed was faulty wiring, was growing louder, like something tuning itself to a voice only it understood. A frequency sliding into place. A note sharpening. The air thickened. Donnie's knees threatened to buckle. Ruth's breathing steadied unnaturally. "Donnie," she said softly, "come closer. We need to finish what we started." He backed toward the doorway. "No, stay away from me." She sat up in one fluid motion. Too fluid. Her hair fell across her face like a curtain, and she pushed it aside with a slow, almost ritualistic gesture. Her bare feet touched the floor. A nurse rushed into the room just then, carrying a chart. "Oh, Miss Collins, you need to stay in bed." Ruth turned toward her. The air shifted again. Sharper. The hum spiked. A flicker of static rippled along the fluorescent lights. The nurse froze mid-step, hand gripping a syringe she hadn't even realized she was carrying. "Miss Collins?" she whispered, voice trembling. Ruth smiled at her. Not maliciously. No anger. Just a naked, eerie calm. "I don't need to stay in bed," Ruth said softly. "I need to be heard." The overhead speaker crackled. The nurse's eyes widened. Not again, not now. Donnie didn't understand what she meant. Not until the speaker above Ruth's head crackled again, louder, and a burst of warped static spilled into the room, thick like a physical force pushing against the walls. The nurse dropped the syringe. Ruth exhaled in relief, and the hum resolved into a voice that was barely human, a voice Donnie recognized anyway. "In the groove!" The sound poured into the room like a flood. Donnie clamped his hands over his ears, but it didn't help. The voice wasn't just in the air, it was inside his skull, vibrating behind his eyes until spots burst across his vision. The nurse collapsed first, her knees hitting the tile floor with a dull thud. Ruth didn't collapse. Ruth stood taller. The lights flickered violently overhead, shadows lurching across the walls. "Donnie," she whispered, as the voice swelled behind her into a distorted choir of static. "It chose us. Don't you see? It chose us both. We just have to follow the signal. We just have to let it in." "No," he choked out. "Ruth, you're not. This isn't." She stepped toward him. Her pupils were two bottomless pits. The static swirled around her like an invisible storm. "We finish it together," she said. "We finish the groove." He stumbled for the hallway, grabbing the doorframe, using it to pull himself forward. Ruth followed. Not running, not walking. Drifting. And the voice grew louder. "In the groove!" The hallway erupted in alarms. Nurses and orderlies spun toward the sound, confusion morphing into horror as the static clawed at their ears. Someone shouted for security. Someone else grabbed a crash cart, but the voice drowned all of it out. Donnie ran. Ruth followed, and the speakers awakened one by one as they passed, each joining the chorus, each adding its mechanical voice to the spreading storm. The hospital, slowly, methodically, began to fall into the groove. Below is Part 9. Continuous narration, 1,400 to 1,500 words. English, same cinematic tone, no summaries, no breaks. Fully original expansion of In the Groove. Part 9, 1,450 words. Donnie didn't look back as he sprinted down the corridor, but he didn't have to. He could feel Ruth behind him. Not in the way one feels footsteps or breath on their neck, but in the way one senses an approaching storm. Pressure building in the spine, a prickle of electricity crawling under the skin. The static boomed through the hospital speakers, bursting from room to room in a rising wave, following him with unnatural precision. Every light he passed flickered violently, showering the hallway in stuttering pulses of brightness and shadow. "Donnie," Ruth's voice floated behind him, soft but everywhere at once. "You're going the wrong way." He pushed forward, shoulder slamming through a swinging door that led to a triage area. The alarms here were louder, shrill, and panicked as nurses hurriedly unplugged machines and rolled patients toward safer rooms. But there was no safe room. Every ceiling tile held a speaker. Every speaker carried the signal, and the signal wanted him. "Out of the way!" Donnie yelled, but his voice was swallowed by the shrieking machines and the rising static. A gurney stood blocking part of the path. He shoved it aside. Its metal frame screeched across the floor. The patient on it, an elderly man breathing through an oxygen mask, flinched as the lights flared above him. "Sir," a nurse snapped, "you can't be back here. You need to return to your room." "My room is exactly where that thing wants me," Donnie shouted back. The nurse stared at him for a beat, confusion knitting her brows, then froze as the speaker above her head crackled. A hush cut through the alarms for one eerie second, like the whole hospital inhaling. Then the voice spilled through the static. "In the groove!" The nurse gasped, clapping her hands over her ears, staggering backward into a tray of instruments that clattered to the floor. Another nurse dropped to her knees. A doctor stumbled against a counter, knocking over a stack of chart folders that fanned across the tiles like fallen leaves. Donnie ran before the static swallowed him too. He ducked into a stairwell, letting the heavy door slam behind him, its rubber seal dulling the roar of noise. For a moment, it was quiet except for the faraway echo of alarms and the pounding of his own heartbeat. He grabbed the railing, nearly collapsing on the top step as dizziness washed over him. He could hear Ruth somewhere above, or below, her voice bending unnaturally through the walls. Donnie, come back." The stairwell lights flickered. One went completely dark. The next dimmed to a faint glow. "Not again," he whispered, forcing himself upright. He started down the stairs, gripping the railing so hard his knuckles whitened. 1 floor, 2, 3... The air got thicker as he descended, and the faint hum followed him down like a descending spiral of sound. On the 4th floor landing, he stopped. A shadow moved at the bottom of the stairwell. No, not a shadow. A figure. Tall, thin, unmoving. Donnie's breath hitched. "Ruth?" he whispered. The figure didn't answer. It didn't breathe. It was shaped like a woman, but stretched wrong, like the silhouette of someone standing too close to a projector, casting a warped shape on the wall. The head tilted at an angle no human neck could manage. The overhead bulb buzzed violently. The figure vibrated, flickered, like interference in a TV signal. Donnie swallowed a scream and stumbled backward up the stairs. The thing didn't chase him. It just shifted. One flicker, and the silhouette was suddenly on the next landing up. Another flicker, closer still, the face starting to form, but not quite human. He shoved through the door to the nearest floor, lungs burning, legs shaking, and slammed it behind him so hard the frame rattled. He didn't stop running. This floor was quieter, too quiet, like the storm had passed through and drained the place of sound. Beds were neatly lined up, but empty. Machines were powered down. A computer terminal blinked unattended in the corner. The silence felt unnatural in a building that should hum with constant life. The hallway stretched before him like a tunnel into an abandoned world. "Donnie," Ruth's voice whispered overhead. He froze. It wasn't coming from behind him. It was coming from every speaker down the hall, every single one, whispering in perfect synchrony. He ran again, dodging supply carts and abandoned clipboards. His hospital gown whipped behind him like a pale flag of surrender. His bare feet slapped against the floor, leaving sweat prints he didn't notice. He needed to get outside. He needed distance, space, air, anything that wasn't wired into that voice. At the far end of the hall, he saw a sign above a double door. "Emergency exit. Alarm will sound." He pushed against it. Nothing. He pushed harder. The door didn't budge. Locked. He shoved his shoulder against it, pain shooting through him. The metal refused to move. Behind him, the overhead speakers popped. The lights flickered. The static crawled back in like a rising tide. "Donnie." Ruth's voice cooed, achingly sweet. "Stop running. You're only making this harder." He banged on the door with both fists. "Let me out!" The static crackled. The lights stuttered. Then a voice, not Ruth's, but the same low, distorted growl that had haunted the broadcast booth, filled the hallway. "Stay in." The floor seemed to vibrate beneath his feet. Donnie staggered backward, hitting the wall. A framed fire evacuation diagram rattled. The speakers hissed like snakes in the ceiling. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no!" A cold gust of air brushed the back of his neck. He spun around. Ruth was standing in the hallway, bare feet, hospital gown, hair hanging around her in a dark halo. But her eyes were wrong. Not wide with madness, not wild with fear. They were calm, empty, as if something behind them had settled in and taken root. "Donnie," she whispered, stepping toward him. "You don't understand yet, but you will." He backed away, hitting the locked exit door again. "What do you want from me?" Ruth stopped only a few feet away, her expression softening with a tenderness so pure it made his stomach twist. "I want us to finish the groove," she said. "We're supposed to broadcast together. That's what it wants. That's what it's been trying to tell us." Donnie shook his head violently. "Broadcast what?" Ruth smiled. "The signal." The lights above her burst, showering the floor with sparks. Donnie shielded his face as smoke curled from the shattered bulbs. The static surged like a living creature, filling the hall with low, pulsing vibration. "I saw everything when you passed out," Ruth murmured, her voice distant, dreamlike. "I heard everything. It wasn't calling me to hurt you, it was calling me to guide you. We're not victims, Donnie. We're instruments." He felt the words like physical blows. "You're sick," he whispered. "This thing, it's inside your head." Ruth shook her head gently. "It's inside both of us." And then she reached for him. Donnie jerked to the side, slamming his shoulder into the crash bar on the emergency exit. His body hit it with enough force that the metal bent slightly. The door clicked. Donnie didn't think. He threw his full weight against it. The alarm shrieked. Cold night air slammed into him. He burst outside, stumbling down a short flight of concrete steps and into the parking lot. The sky above the hospital glowed with a sickly, flickering light. Static pouring from the rooftop speakers in visible tremors, like heat waves rising from asphalt. He didn't stop running until he reached the far end of the lot, collapsing behind a parked truck, lungs clawing for air. For a moment, just a moment, there was silence. "Anai." Then the closest outdoor speaker crackled to life above him, and Ruth's voice whispered through it like a lover leaning close. "Donnie, you can run, but the signal always finds what belongs to it." The speaker coil hummed. The parking lot lights flickered, and Donnie realized with sinking dread, the signal wasn't confined to the hospital anymore. It was spreading, searching, locking onto its frequency, locking onto him. The hospital corridors were silent now, almost eerily so, the usual bustle reduced to a hushed whisper of distant footsteps. Donnie and Ruth moved cautiously, side by side, their hands brushing occasionally as if testing the reality of the connection they had forged in the storm. The groove still pulsed faintly in the background, subtle, like the residual heartbeat of a great machine cooling after intense work. Donnie could feel it in his chest, a reminder that nothing about today had been ordinary, and that their survival had come at a cost he didn't yet understand. Ruth's gaze was fixed ahead, eyes sharp, alert, scanning every corner as if the building itself could hide threats within its walls. "It's not gone," she said quietly. "It never leaves, but it waits for the right rhythm, for those who are attuned." Donnie frowned. "What do you mean, attuned? Are you saying it selects people?" She nodded. "It's not random. The groove finds weakness, curiosity, and obsession, but it also responds to balance. That's why we survived. Most would have been overwhelmed, swallowed whole." He shivered. "Balance? I don't feel balanced. I feel like my head is going to explode every time I remember that sound." "That's natural," Ruth said, brushing her hand across his arm in a calming gesture. The pulse remains inside you, the echoes. You'll learn to walk with it without being consumed, but only if you stay aware, only if you stay with me. Donnie's stomach twisted. She had saved him once, literally pulled him through the storm, and yet there was a coldness beneath her calm, an edge that reminded him of the Ruth he had first encountered in the booth, the one whose eyes could pierce and unsettle in equal measure. Could he trust her? Could he afford not to? Before he could answer, the elevator chimed. The doors slid open with a hiss, and for a brief moment, relief washed over him. Escape, a way out of the twisted halls and flickering lights. He stepped inside, motioning for Ruth to follow. But the elevator's interior was wrong. Small details that should have been mundane, handrails, floor tiles, buttons, were distorted. The numbers on the display ticked in a sequence that made no sense, skipping floors, moving backward, then forward again. Donnie's palms sweated. The subtle groove vibration in the metal beneath his feet intensified. "Don't touch the buttons," Ruth warned softly, her eyes locked on the shifting numbers. "It's temperamental." "Temperamental?" he hissed, panic rising. "It's a machine. It has wires and circuits, not rhythm." Ruth shook her head. "It's more than that. It's everything. The building, the air, the electricity, even us. Don't fight it." The elevator lurched suddenly, sending Donnie's stomach into his throat. The lights above flickered violently, shadows stretching along the walls, forming jagged shapes that seemed to move independently. His hand shot out instinctively, gripping the railing, knuckles white. Ruth stepped close, her presence both grounding and disconcerting. "Feel it," she whispered. "Don't resist." Donnie exhaled shakily. He didn't understand what feeling it meant, but the pull was irresistible. There was a rhythm beneath the chaos, subtle yet undeniable, threading through the machinery, the air, even the metallic sheen of the elevator walls. He let it flow into him, letting his heartbeat synchronize with the pulse. With Ruth guiding, it felt almost manageable. The elevator stopped abruptly. A loud metallic groan echoed through the shaft, followed by silence. The doors slid open to a floor he didn't recognize, a floor that wasn't on any map of the hospital. Dim fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting long, distorted shadows. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something sweet, almost like burnt sugar. Ruth's voice cut through the silence. "This is where it wants us. The heart of the building. The amplifier." Donnie swallowed hard. "The amplifier? Of what?" "The groove," she said simply, her eyes glinting in the low light. "This floor is special. The pulse is strongest here. It can consume or create depending on how it's guided. That's why it drew us in. That's why it left you alive." He felt the weight of her words settle in his chest, cold and undeniable. The hum he had thought was only in the speakers, only in the walls, only in the machines, was in him, and now he understood. It wasn't just sound. It was energy, intent, a sentient rhythm that wanted something, though he didn't yet know what. The hallway stretched before them, impossibly long, lined with doors that all looked identical. Each door was labeled with numbers that skipped, reversed, and duplicated in impossible sequences. Ruth moved forward without hesitation, her steps light, almost floating. Donnie followed, feeling the groove pulse beneath each footfall, matching its rhythm. "Do you know what happens if you ignore it?" Ruth asked softly. He shook his head. "It consumes. Slowly. A mind left out of sync becomes hollow. Fragments lost, pieces taken. Some are never found." The hair on the back of Donnie's neck stood up. "Fragments? Pieces? You mean people? It takes people?" Ruth nodded. "Yes, the ones who can't align. But it also transforms. It can build. It can create. That's why it chose us. Together, we can channel it." The hum grew louder as they approached the central door at the end of the corridor. Unlike the other doors, this one pulsed with a faint internal light, the glow throbbing with the beat of the groove. Donnie's instincts screamed to run, to escape back to the familiar, to the outside world. But Ruth's hand found his again, warm and grounding. "Are you ready?" she asked, voice quiet but firm. He hesitated. His mind raced. cataloging every oddity, every warning, every instinct screaming that the building itself was alive, that the groove was sentient, and that stepping through this door might mean losing himself entirely. But, looking at Ruth, he saw the same determination mirrored in her eyes, the same resolve that had carried them through chaos and static, through fear and uncertainty. He nodded, ready. She squeezed his hand. Then step with me. They pushed the door open together. The room beyond was enormous, impossibly wide, with walls lined with strange machinery, wires, and glass panels filled with glowing liquid. The lights pulsed in sync with the hum, now fully realized as a living presence, radiating in waves that vibrated through the floor, the walls, even Donnie's bones. In the center of the room was a pedestal, circular, etched with strange symbols, some resembling sound waves, others entirely alien. From it emanated the groove, powerful and tangible, coiling like smoke that could be touched. Ruth stepped forward, motioning for Donnie to follow. This is the core, the amplifier. Here is where it chooses. Here is where it decides who survives and who becomes part of it. Donnie's eyes scanned the room, taking in the machinery, the symbols, the hum that now felt like a heartbeat rather than a sound. Fear gripped him, but underneath it was awe. Something beyond understanding pulsed here. Something alive, intelligent, and terrifyingly beautiful. "Do you feel it?" Ruth asked. Her voice was soft, almost reverent. "Not just in your ears, in your chest, your bones, your mind." He closed his eyes. The groove surged, wrapping around him like a liquid current flowing through every vein, every nerve, every thought. His heartbeat synchronized fully. His fear didn't vanish, but it became manageable, tempered by the rhythm. "You're ready," Ruth whispered. "Together, we can channel it, shape it, control it, but it requires complete trust, absolute trust." Donnie opened his eyes. He met hers, and in that gaze he saw the same acceptance, the same understanding. The edge of danger was there, yes, but so was possibility. Survival, yes, but more than survival. Mastery, alignment, transformation. He took a deep breath, reaching for her hand again. "I trust you," he said. Ruth smiled faintly. "Then let's finish this." The pedestal's glow intensified. The machinery hummed in harmony. And the groove, alive, pulsing, aware, waited for their next move, ready to decide the fate of both of them, and perhaps of everyone beyond these walls. Donnie's heart thudded in time with the pulsing light of the pedestal. Every instinct screamed caution. Every nerve fired in protest. But the groove had already claimed a rhythm inside him that he could no longer ignore. It was a tide that lifted and carried him, a subtle pressure at first, then a wave that pressed into every bone, every thought, every fleeting memory of who he had been. Ruth's hand in his was the only anchor, her warmth and certainty keeping him tethered to humanity, even as the room itself seemed to warp and breathe around them. "Are you ready?" she whispered again, close enough that her breath brushed his cheek. Her eyes glimmered in the pedestal's pulsing light, the same glow reflected faintly in the liquid-filled tubes lining the walls. "This is where we become what we are meant to be." Donnie swallowed, his throat dry, but he nodded. "Ready," he said, though the word felt inadequate, hollow against the weight of the unknown. Ruth stepped forward first, her presence magnetic, almost commanding the air to move with her. Donnie followed, hesitant, letting the rhythm guide his steps. The pedestal's glow brightened as they approached, the light now spilling in streams across the floor, reflecting in the liquid tubes, catching in the machinery like sparks in a storm. The hum, the living pulse, intensified, vibrating through the floor, the walls, and every nerve in Donnie's body. "This is it," Ruth said softly. "This is the point of alignment. The core listens, but it responds only to those who offer themselves willingly. Not in fear, not in defiance, but in balance." Donnie's mind raced. "Balance? How can anyone achieve balance with this?" He gestured vaguely at the room, at the pulsing pedestal, the machinery humming with an energy that seemed alive. This is insane!" Ruth's hand tightened around his. "Insane? Maybe. But it's real. And it chose us. Trust me, Donnie. We can guide it, shape it, or it can consume us. He met her gaze. There was no malice there now, only intensity, focus, a clarity that he couldn't deny. The groove pulsed in time with his heartbeat, its rhythm insistent, demanding. Donnie exhaled slowly, letting himself surrender to the flow. For a brief moment, fear softened into an eerie calm, a clarity that sharpened with each pulse. "Together," he whispered. Ruth nodded. "Together." They stepped closer to the pedestal. The moment their hands hovered over the glowing surface, the room seemed to inhale. A massive, silent breath that pressed against their chests and made their limbs tremble. The light inside the pedestal spiraled upward, faster now, colors shifting between shades Donnie had never seen, impossible gradients of blues and purples and gold that seemed to stretch beyond the boundaries of human vision. The hum erupted into a resonance that was almost audible as a voice, thousands of voices layered into one, repeating, "In the grave." Donnie felt the sound in his bones. It no longer hurt, it no longer frightened him. Instead, it resonated with something inside, a hidden rhythm he hadn't known existed, a place in him that had always craved connection, pattern, and meaning. Ruth's hand brushed his, and he felt her calmness, her focus, her mastery. She wasn't just surviving the groove, she was guiding it. He exhaled, letting the rhythm flow through him. "I feel it," he said, voice low, reverent. "Good," Ruth said. Her eyes softened. "Now let it guide you. Feel the pattern. Step into the frequency." Donnie obeyed instinctively. He matched his breathing to the pedestal's pulse, his heartbeat to the hum. The groove responded, flowing through him like liquid fire, warm and precise, threading through his consciousness. It wasn't just sound, not just energy. It was awareness, intent, a living rhythm that adjusted to him as he moved. Each step he took matched the cadence, each breath aligned perfectly with the room's resonance. Ruth guided him with subtle gestures, shifting her hand slightly, adjusting the pulse as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Donnie followed, completely attuned now, a participant in a pattern far beyond comprehension. The machinery hummed, the lights shimmered, and the pedestal's glow reached blinding intensity. Then, abruptly, the pedestal opened. A fissure of light splitting the surface, revealing a void inside, infinite and impossible. Donnie's stomach dropped. It was as though the room itself had peeled back a layer of reality, revealing the raw essence of the groove. The voices intensified, layering into a dense harmony that vibrated in his chest. "This is the heart," Ruth whispered. "We must guide it, shape it. Do not hesitate." Donnie nodded. He could feel the pulse inside him, now inseparable from his own heartbeat. Every fear, every hesitation, every ounce of doubt threatened to pull him away, but Ruth's steady presence anchored him. He let himself be carried, following her subtle gestures, matching her rhythm. The void within the pedestal responded. Waves of light spiraled outward, rippling across the room. The machinery hummed in ecstatic resonance, amplifying the groove until it became a tangible force, tangible and yet ungraspable. Donnie felt it pressing against him, testing him, teasing him, challenging him to maintain the rhythm. He faltered once, a slight misstep, and the voices surged in intensity, almost punishing him. Ruth's hand squeezed his, a silent reminder. He inhaled deeply, recalibrated, and the pulse realigned. "Good," Ruth said. Her voice was calm, unwavering, guiding the storm. "Now push further. Give it everything. Every thought, every heartbeat, every ounce of trust. Become part of it." Donnie closed his eyes, letting the light and sound engulf him completely. He felt his consciousness stretch, merge with the pattern, thread into the infinite rhythm of the groove. Fear and doubt dissolved into motion, motion into harmony, harmony into awareness. He was no longer just himself, he was the rhythm, the current, a living node within the vast network of sound, light, and intent. And then he felt Ruth beside him, not separate, not controlling, but perfectly synchronized. Their movements intertwined, a dual conductor shaping the pulse together, navigating the infinite folds of the groove. It wasn't just survival now, it was creation, mastery, a deliberate shaping of the impossible force that had threatened to consume them. The room around them pulsed with newfound clarity. The machinery no longer seemed chaotic. The lights were no longer erratic. Even the pedestal, infinite and impossible, now hummed in perfect harmony with their combined rhythm. Donnie opened his eyes. He could see the flow of the groove, the invisible threads connecting everything, every pulse of energy, every flicker of light, every vibration in the air. And in the center of it all, Ruth stood as both guide and partner, her eyes reflecting infinite depths of understanding. "It's working," he whispered. "Yes," Ruth said. "We've aligned it. Not just survived, but mastered it. Together, we are part of the rhythm. We are in the groove." Donnie let the words settle in, a truth he had only begun to comprehend. The fear, the chaos, the uncertainty, they were all gone, replaced by a strange, exhilarating clarity. The groove was no longer a threat. It was an extension of their own will, their own consciousness, a force they could guide rather than be guided by. But even as relief and triumph washed through him, a faint pulse lingered at the edges of his awareness, a subtle echo of the earlier chaos. He couldn't deny it. The groove was still vast, still alive, still aware, and somewhere deep within its infinite patterns there were echoes of resistance, of other forces, other rhythms, waiting to be challenged, waiting to test them again. Ruth's hand found his. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "Yes," Donnie replied, a calm certainty settling over him. "I feel it." "Good," she said, her smile faint but steady. "Because the real challenge has just begun." The vast chamber pulsed with energy, the pedestal at its center now a stable, radiant core of the groove. Donnie's chest still throbbed in sync with the rhythm, his body and mind attuned in a way that defied explanation. It was intoxicating, the feeling of absolute alignment, yet beneath the calm certainty lingered a gnawing edge, a whisper of doubt that reminded him how close they had been to losing everything. He glanced at Ruth, and in her eyes he saw no hesitation, no fear, only clarity. She had guided him through chaos, and now she moved with purpose, an extension of the force itself. "Now," she said softly, "we must extend it. This room is only the beginning. The groove connects more than just these walls. It flows through the hospital, the city, even beyond. But it needs guidance. Without us, it spreads unchecked." Donnie swallowed. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. "You mean, control it? Shape it?" "Yes," Ruth said. Her eyes glimmered with that familiar intensity. "We've survived the core, but survival isn't enough. Alignment isn't enough. We have to navigate it, or it navigates us. The groove seeks coherence. It wants harmony. We can give it structure, or chaos." He nodded slowly, his mind catching up to the concept. It made sense, in the strange alien logic of the Force. The chaos he had felt, the hallucinations, the echoes of the radio broadcast, they were all part of an initial test. Now, with their rhythm synchronized, they could impose pattern on it, guide it, shape it into something coherent rather than destructive. Ruth moved closer to the pedestal, her hand hovering just above its glowing surface. "Follow my lead," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Let it flow through you, not just inside you. Extend your awareness beyond this room. Feel the connections, the currents. Become the conduit." Donnie extended his hand, fingertips brushing the pedestal. A surge of energy shot through him, a tingling that raced along every nerve. He felt the groove stretching outward, tendrils of invisible rhythm radiating through the building, touching walls, floors, pipes, even the air itself. It was alive, sentient, responsive, and now, finally, cooperative. "Focus," Ruth instructed. "Synchronize your thoughts with the rhythm. Don't resist. Let it move through you, shape you, and in turn, guide it." Donnie took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and let the pulse fill him completely, not just as sound, not just as vibration, but as a living pattern. His consciousness expanded, threading into the network of energy, feeling every pulse, every fluctuation, every echo. He sensed the hospital as a living entity, the floors, the walls, the machinery, all part of the groove, a complex organism seeking balance. Ruth's hand tightened around his. "Good," she whispered. "Now reach further. Don't limit yourself to this building. Feel the currents beyond these walls. The groove extends into the city, into the grid, into everything." Donnie felt it immediately. The rhythm stretched beyond the hospital, a vast, intricate lattice of energy linking the city in patterns he could barely comprehend. Signals from traffic lights, electrical circuits, water pumps, even distant radio towers, everything pulsed in faint harmony. The groove flowed through it all, and now, for the first time, he understood the magnitude of what they were holding. "It's massive," he breathed, awe and fear mingling in his chest. "We could control it," Ruth interrupted, finishing his thought, "or be controlled by it. One step wrong, one misalignment, and it spreads unchecked, unpredictable. We must be precise." Donnie nodded. He could feel the stakes now. This was no longer about survival or even mastery of a single building. They were guardians of a rhythm that spanned the city, that could influence countless lives if mismanaged. The weight was immense, but somehow, with Ruth guiding, it felt achievable. They moved together around the pedestal, their hands brushing surfaces, their gestures dictating the flow of energy. The hum of the groove responded instantly, brightening and dimming, pulsing faster or slower depending on their movements. Each motion created patterns, like ripples in water, that spread through the lattice of energy threading the city. Donnie marveled at how delicate it was, how a slight misalignment could send chaos rippling outward, how precise movements could bring harmony. "Feel it in your body," Ruth said softly. "The rhythm isn't just in your mind. It's in your pulse, your breath, your nerves. Become aware of it fully." Donnie closed his eyes again, letting the rhythm guide his heartbeat, synchronize his breathing, and align his thoughts. He could feel the subtle flow of energy twisting and spiraling, forming currents that carried information, patterns, and intention. The groove was no longer a force to survive. It was a living network, and he could navigate it like a stream, guiding its path without resistance. Suddenly, a flicker of instability ran through the lattice. A section of the city pulsed erratically. Signals skewed, rhythm broken. Donnie's pulse quickened. "Ruth, something's wrong." She nodded, eyes narrowing. "I see it. A disruption. Possibly someone else, someone who isn't aligned. If we don't stabilize it, the groove could unravel." Donnie felt the pressure immediately. The energy surged against him, tugging at his mind, trying to pull him out of alignment. He clenched his teeth, matching his thoughts to the pulse, and with Ruth's guidance they wove the disturbance back into the network. The hum stabilized, the rhythm returned to a smooth, coherent flow. "It's delicate," Ruth said, voice calm but serious. "Every person, every current has its own rhythm. Some will disrupt it, some will resist. We must always be vigilant." Donnie nodded. The responsibility was enormous, yet there was a strange exhilaration in it. The groove was no longer a threat. It was a tool, a living instrument, and they were the conductors. With precision, awareness, and trust in each other, they could shape it, guide it, protect it. They moved around the room, hands tracing patterns in the air, synchronizing with the pedestal, weaving currents, balancing flows. Donnie felt his consciousness expanding further, threading into the city, touching electrical grids, water systems, communications, even distant broadcasts. The groove pulsed through everything, and he was at the center, guiding, harmonizing, mastering. "Donnie," Ruth said softly, her eyes glimmering with intensity, "we've done well. But there's more. The core is only the beginning. Beyond this building, beyond the city, there's a vast network of energy, of rhythms, of life itself. The groove touches it all. We have the potential to guide it, or be consumed by it." He swallowed. The magnitude of it was staggering, almost overwhelming, yet he felt calm. The fear from earlier had transformed into clarity, focus, and purpose. With Ruth by his side, guiding him, he felt capable of anything. I understand, he said firmly. I can do this. We can do this. She smiled faintly, a glimmer of warmth and triumph. Good, because the real journey has just begun. The groove never stops, but neither can we. Not now, not ever. Donnie exhaled, letting the energy flow through him, feeling every pulse, every vibration, every ripple. He was no longer just himself. He was part of something vast, something alive, something infinite. And with Ruth beside him, perfectly synchronized, he knew they could face whatever came next. The pedestal glowed steadily now, a beacon of order amid chaos, radiating the rhythm of the groove throughout the building and beyond. Donnie and Ruth stood side by side, hands brushing, bodies attuned, minds synchronized. They had survived the storm, mastered the core, and now held the power to guide the living rhythm itself. And even as the hum continued, faint but persistent, they knew one truth above all else. The groove would never stop calling. But this time they were ready, together. The city outside the hospital had settled into an eerie calm. Streetlights flickered rhythmically, traffic moved in silent synchronicity, and even the distant hum of electrical grids seemed to carry a subtle, steady pulse. Donnie and Ruth emerged from the building together, their presence almost imperceptible to the world around them, yet profoundly connected to the rhythm that flowed invisibly through every street, every alley, every hidden conduit of energy. Donnie's mind raced with the enormity of what they had accomplished and what lay ahead. The groove was no longer a localized phenomenon. It had extended far beyond the hospital, and their touch was now interwoven into the network itself. He could feel the pulse in the very air, in the vibrations of the concrete beneath their feet, in the distant murmur of the city's heartbeat. Every moment, the groove sought balance, harmony, and perfection, and he and Ruth had become the conduits for that flow. "Do you feel it?" Ruth asked, her voice soft but insistent. Her eyes gleamed in the dim glow of the streetlights, reflecting both triumph and unspoken warning. Donnie nodded. "Yes, it's everywhere. I can feel the city moving with it." "That's good," she said, her gaze scanning the horizon. "But it's fragile. The rhythm is delicate. One misstep, one moment of imbalance, and it can unravel. We have to be vigilant, always." He shivered, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him like a tangible force. The idea that a single misalignment could send chaos rippling through the lives of thousands, or millions, was almost too much to comprehend. And yet, the thrill of control, of participation in something so vast and alive, was intoxicating. He could feel it coursing through his veins, threading into his very being, a living connection that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Ruth moved closer, her hand brushing his. "Don't let fear guide you," she whispered. "Balance is not the absence of fear. It's understanding it, embracing it, letting it flow through you instead of against you." He nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. "And if we fail?" Ruth's eyes hardened, a flash of steel beneath the warmth. "Then the groove consumes, untempered. But we won't fail. Not together." The city around them seemed to respond to their conversation, the pulse of energy intensifying in subtle waves. Lights dimmed and brightened in perfect sequence. The distant traffic hummed in harmony, and even the faint radio static in the air carried the unmistakable cadence of the rhythm they now controlled. Donnie realized that the groove wasn't just a force of destruction or creation. It was a living intelligence, aware of their actions, responsive to their guidance. It watched, it learned, and it adapted. They walked together through the streets, each step perfectly aligned with the invisible current beneath them. Donnie could feel the flow extending outward, probing the city, linking systems and structures into a coherent network of sound, light, and energy. The rhythm was alive, sentient, and vast beyond comprehension, but now it resonated with their presence, yielding to their guidance. "This is incredible," Donnie whispered. "I can feel everything. Traffic signals, power lines, even people. Their movements, their pulses, they all contribute to the rhythm." Ruth nodded. "Yes, the groove is more than energy. It's life, perception, intent. It connects everything. And now, so do we." Donnie's mind struggled to process it all. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. They had survived the core, mastered the hospital's amplifier, and now held influence over an entire city's hidden pulse. But with that power came immense responsibility. Every action, every thought, every shift in rhythm could ripple outward with consequences he could scarcely imagine. They reached a quiet plaza, the heart of the city bathed in moonlight. The groove pulsed visibly here, not in light or sound, but in the subtle energy that made the air vibrate, made the pavement hum beneath their feet. Donnie knelt, placing his palm against the ground, feeling the invisible currents thread through him, connecting him to everything around him. "It's beautiful," he murmured, awestruck, like the city itself is alive. Ruth knelt beside him, placing her hand over his. "It is alive, and we are its guides. But beauty can be dangerous. The groove is balanced, but fragile. We must maintain the rhythm." Donnie exhaled slowly, letting the pulse flow through him, grounding himself in the cadence. He could feel the patterns of life all around him, the rise and fall of traffic, the heartbeat of distant inhabitants, the subtle vibrations of underground networks, and he began to intuit the interconnections, the threads that wove the city together. Each movement, each sound, each spark of life contributed to the rhythm, and now, with Ruth beside him, he could influence it, guide it, shape it. "Do you think the world is ready for this?" he asked quietly. Ruth's gaze was distant, thoughtful. "The world is always moving to its own rhythm, whether we see it or not. The groove is just another layer. We can guide it, but we cannot control all of it. That's not the point. The point is awareness, alignment, balance." Donnie nodded, understanding the subtle wisdom in her words. It wasn't about domination, about imposing their will blindly. It was about becoming part of the rhythm, harmonizing with it, and guiding it with intention. Suddenly, a disturbance rippled through the pulse, a faint, discordant vibration that tugged at Donnie's mind. He froze, sensing the subtle misalignment spreading outward, a faint shadow within the otherwise perfect rhythm. "What is it?" he asked, eyes wide. "Someone else," Ruth said softly, her voice tense. "A presence. Out of sync. They are trying to tap into the groove without understanding it. We need to stabilize the rhythm, or they will disrupt everything we've created." Donnie felt a surge of fear and urgency. The thought that another consciousness could threaten the delicate balance they had achieved was alarming. He focused, letting the pulse guide him, extending his awareness outward, tracing the distortion to its source. "There," he whispered, pointing. "I can feel it. Someone in the northern sector, an apartment complex. Their rhythm is chaotic, erratic, unaligned." Ruth nodded. "We can correct it, but we have to move carefully. Disruptions like this can cascade if we're not precise." They rose, moving in perfect synchronization with the invisible current beneath their feet. Donnie felt the energy thread through the streets, guiding them, warning them of obstacles, amplifying the groove where necessary. The city responded, subtle changes in the vibrations of the streetlights and distant hums aiding their journey. As they approached the northern sector, the distortion became stronger, more chaotic. Donnie could sense the misaligned presence, a figure, unaware of the network they were part of, attempting to manipulate it recklessly. Every movement they made sent ripples of discord through the rhythm, threatening to destabilize the intricate patterns they had established. Ruth's hand found his again. "Focus," she said. "Guide them gently. They don't understand yet. Force will create resistance. Harmony is the key." Donnie nodded, closing his eyes. He extended his awareness, threading the pulse around the rogue presence, gently nudging their rhythm back into alignment. It was delicate work, requiring patience, intuition, and absolute concentration. Every misstep could intensify the chaos, every hesitation could create discord. Slowly, the figure's erratic movements began to synchronize with the rhythm, their presence harmonizing with the groove. Donnie felt the tension ease, the city's pulse stabilizing once more. He exhaled, relief flooding through him. Ruth smiled faintly, her hand still brushing his. "Good, that's the way. Guide, don't control. Harmonize, don't dominate. That's the lesson of the groove. Donnie opened his eyes, feeling the energy of the city flowing smoothly once more. Every vibration, every pulse in perfect harmony. The rogue presence had been integrated without destruction, the rhythm maintained and the delicate balance preserved. He looked at Ruth, gratitude and admiration shining in his eyes. I think I understand now. It's not just about power, it's about connection, awareness, balance. Ruth nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. Exactly. And now you see why we must always remain vigilant. The groove is infinite. The challenges are endless. But together, we can guide it, shape it, and protect it. Donnie felt a deep, calming sense of purpose settle over him. The fear, the chaos, the uncertainty, they were gone, replaced by clarity, focus, and harmony. The groove was no longer a threat. It was a partner, a network, a living rhythm that they had learned to navigate, guide, and protect. And as they stood together, hands brushing, attuned to the pulse of the city, Donnie realized one undeniable truth. The groove would never stop calling. But this time, they were ready. The city lay beneath them like a sleeping giant, the lights dimmed to a gentle shimmer, the hum of life steady and predictable now. Donnie and Ruth stood atop the hospital roof, hands intertwined, feeling the invisible currents of the groove stretch outward, threading through every street, every building, every living pulse that lingered beneath the moonlit skyline. The night air was cool against their skin, carrying the faint scent of rain and ozone, a reminder that even amidst harmony, life always retained its unpredictable edge. Donnie closed his eyes, letting the rhythm flow through him. The groove was vast, almost incomprehensible, yet with Ruth beside him, it felt intimate, tangible. He could sense the heartbeat of the city beneath them, the currents of energy, the subtle fluctuations, the hidden patterns connecting lives, machines, and systems into a single living organism. And now, for the first time, he understood the responsibility that came with awareness. They weren't just guides, they were guardians. Ruth's voice broke the silence, calm, yet imbued with authority. Tonight, the city breathes in harmony. But it is only the beginning. The groove is infinite. Its pulse never ceases, its rhythm never stops. Every day, every hour, every second, it calls to those who are attuned, and we are its stewards. Donnie nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over him. He had survived the chaos, aligned with the core, mastered the amplifier, and extended the rhythm across the city. Yet Ruth's calm tone reminded him that the journey was far from over. Mastery was not a destination. It was a continuous path, one that demanded vigilance, awareness, and unwavering balance. He glanced at her, curiosity and admiration mingling in his gaze. "Do you ever fear it?" he asked quietly. "The groove, I mean. Even now, with everything aligned?" Ruth's eyes, reflecting the faint glow of the city lights, softened for a moment. "Fear is natural," she admitted. "It keeps you aware, keeps you humble, but fear must never control you. The groove responds to understanding, not hesitation. And that is why we must remain attuned, always." Donnie exhaled, letting the rhythm anchor him. He felt the subtle vibrations in the pavement beneath his feet, in the air, in the very molecules surrounding them. The pulse was steady, harmonious, a living force that responded to their guidance. But even as he marveled at the delicate balance they had achieved, a flicker of doubt surfaced. A whisper of the chaos they had once survived. The groove was infinite, yes, but so were its possibilities. There would always be challenges, disruptions, echoes of misalignment waiting to test them. Ruth seemed to sense his thoughts. "Do you feel it?" she asked softly. "The faint distortions, small ripples in the current?" He nodded. "Yes, minor misalignments, like the pulse is testing us or probing for weakness." She smiled faintly. "Exactly. It always tests. That is its nature, but so long as we remain vigilant, attuned, and balanced, we guide it. Not for power, not for control, but for harmony, for protection." Donnie looked out across the city, awareness stretching beyond the limits of human comprehension. The groove was everywhere. The flicker of a neon sign, the subtle vibration of distant trains, The pulse of lights in tall office towers, it connected them all, forming an invisible network of energy and intention, alive and responsive. And now, with Ruth by his side, he understood that alignment was not about dominance. It was about integration, about becoming a part of something greater than themselves. He felt a sudden surge of energy, stronger than anything before, as though the groove itself had acknowledged their presence and expanded its reach. The currents of the city vibrated in perfect harmony. Lights pulsed in sequence, and even the distant hum of electrical lines seemed to carry a melodic cadence. Donnie's heartbeat synchronized fully with the rhythm, his mind and body attuned in ways that defied explanation. Ruth's hand found his, grounding him as always. "Do you feel it?" she asked, voice almost reverent. The city itself sings in alignment, every current, every life, every spark of energy, in harmony. Donnie exhaled slowly, letting the realization sink in. "It's beautiful," he whispered, "like everything is alive, and we're part of it." "Yes," Ruth said softly, "and we will remain so, but never forget, the groove is infinite. Its rhythm never ceases. There will always be moments that test our balance, challenge our harmony. That is the nature of the force." A soft breeze ruffled their hair, carrying the faint scent of ozone and rain-soaked streets. Donnie felt a subtle vibration beneath his feet, a ripple that pulsed outward in waves across the city. It was minor, almost imperceptible, but he sensed it immediately, a reminder that the groove was never static. Its energy flowed constantly, weaving through life, matter, and intention, shaping the world with every pulse. "Do you think anyone else could feel it?" Donnie asked, curiosity edged with caution. "Could someone else align with it, like we did?" Ruth's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but alignment requires understanding, attunement, and trust. Most would be consumed by the rhythm before they even realized it was calling, and some are not meant to be attuned. That is why we are guardians. We guide, we protect, and we harmonize. That is our duty." He nodded, comprehension deepening. It was not about power, it was about stewardship, awareness, and harmony. They were custodians of something vast, infinite, and incomprehensible, responsible for maintaining the delicate balance of forces that connected every pulse of life in the city. A faint ripple of dissonance flared in the distance, a subtle twitch in the rhythm that threatened to cascade. Donnie felt the tension immediately, the familiar surge of urgency that had once terrified him. But now, with Ruth beside him, he moved with calm precision, sending threads of energy outward to stabilize the current. The dissonance smoothed, the pulse restored, and the city's rhythm returned to perfect harmony. "Good," Ruth said, her voice calm, steady, and resolute. "The groove tests us constantly, but we are ready. Together, we guide it. Together, we protect it. That is our path." Donnie exhaled, relief washing through him, mixed with awe and reverence. The groove was infinite, unending, and alive in ways he could scarcely articulate. Yet with Ruth at his side, with their hearts, minds, and intentions perfectly attuned, he felt prepared for whatever challenges the rhythm might send their way. The city shimmered beneath the moon, lights pulsing gently, traffic moving in smooth cadence, and the distant hum of electrical lines carrying the invisible heartbeat of the groove. Donnie closed his eyes once more, letting himself merge fully with the rhythm, feeling every pulse, every current, every subtle vibration flowing through his consciousness. He was no longer merely a man. He was a node, a conduit, a guardian of an infinite living rhythm. Ruth squeezed his hand. "It will never stop calling," she whispered. "The groove is eternal, but neither will we stop listening. Neither will we stop guiding. We are in harmony, and that is enough." Donnie smiled, the tension of fear and uncertainty replaced by calm certainty. He had faced the chaos, mastered the core, guided the rhythm across the city, and now understood the infinite scope of their responsibility. The groove would never cease, but neither would they falter. Together, they had become more than survivors. They had become stewards, guardians, and harmonizers of a force that was alive, aware, and eternal. He looked at Ruth, the city, the pulsing network of energy stretching beyond sight. "Together," he said firmly, echoing the words that had carried them through every trial. "Together," she echoed, a faint smile touching her lips, a glimmer of triumph and trust in her eyes. And beneath the moonlit sky, with the city alive beneath them, Donnie and Ruth stood hand in hand, attuned to the infinite rhythm, guardians of the groove, their consciousness interwoven with the pulse of life itself. The force that had once threatened to consume them was now theirs to guide, to protect, and to harmonize. And as the night deepened, the groove pulsed steadily, infinitely, eternally, a living rhythm calling to all who could hear, and they would always be there to answer.